Cheers, cheers, you two. We're here to talk about fucking Cannibal Corpse tonight. How we doing?
Yeah, long overdue.
Long
We've been talking
overdue.
about doing this for a month or two at least.
Yeah, before I think it was like late November, early December or something like that.
Yeah, because I think I was about to see them live.
That was it.
Around the time maybe you had the idea.
And I will give Chris the credit for the idea. I don't remember when it popped up, Chris, but you were just like, let's just talk about Chris Barnes, and I was like,
exactly.
Okay.
Let's talk about the real Cannibal Corpse.
Oh shit!
And not the tourist attraction Cannibal Corpse.
You mean the one that was on Ace Ventura?
That was real Cannibal Corpse.
That wasn't the tourist attraction one.
Yeah.
Big screen.
I definitely want to get into that.
Okay.
For sure.
So because I was thinking about a way of how do you compare Barnes Cannibal Corpse to Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse?
Yes.
And they're kind of like Ozzy Sabbath and Dio Sabbath. And if they're and like even though people love Dio Sabbath, myself included, Sabbath will always be Ozzy Sabbath first before it's Dio Sabbath. And that's how Cannibal Corpse is. Chris Barnes Cannibal Corpse will always be true Cannibal Corpse. And Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse is the business. You know, like this is the 9 to 5. This is on some albums, this is them calling it in. It's you know.
I don't disagree, honestly. Like, especially after like you start following them for like an album or two, and you start seeing like the cycle, like the well-oiled machine as they're just churning out, Motorhead style album after album. I mean, we'll touch on that when we get into the Barnes stuff, but like Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse is a well-oiled machine of just product, kind of,
Yeah.
Which I still love. I mean, I'm gonna, talk about.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and that's a good point. It is very much the corporate career musicians. Then they have this.
It's the Metal
brand.
Blade.
Yeah, this brand that they've created.
Well,
and it pays the bills, and they're good at what they do, and like you said, they do kind of. I don't know. Have they made a better album with Corpse Grinder than they did with Barnes? I don't think so. But they're very consistent, and yeah, that's what I would say. They're very consistent. Every album has a really cool track that they seem to add to the set list, and then and then go from there. But is it? Are we getting any Tomb of the Mutilated 2.0? Not really.
Well, the thing about kind of just rewinding back to the legacy of Cannibal Corpse, everything about Cannibal Corpse's legacy goes back to Chris Barnes. The album artwork specifically, none of the album artwork for Corpse Grinder era is memorable. It's Butchered at Birth, it's Tomb of the Mutilated, just even like the dude who was doing the art. I think he did the art for Vile. I'm not sure.
He's done all of it, Vince Locke, besides Skeleton Domain.
Right.
Oh, he's done all
he's done all of it.
I wonder if he changed his format, because you could tell from the earlier stuff it looks like watercolors, but it's like the stuff that's been coming out, it looks more just like computer graphics.
I think he probably just got more digital,
or maybe clean up in the post-production phase, something like that.
There's no denying the earlier artwork is superior. Like, I don't disagree. There's some Corpse Grinder era artwork though that really just, like, back in the day, churned my stomach. Like, I was just not feeling it. Like the artwork for the Wretched Spawn and stuff. Ooh.
Yeah, but
it's different.
The one that always stood out to me was the Worm Infested EP, which I do not have.
Oh,
That one
yeah.
especially, that one was kind of like whoa, but it still didn't compare to
Butchered
yeah,
at birth.
immediately. Yeah, those.
Yeah, like
Well,
dude, on the stream on Marty's stream last night.
Yeah, that
when
was
when
cool.
Riddick was going over the art, like I've never looked at the art like in that way. The way that he pointed out the angles of how everything was. Like, I mean, I can't fucking barely write my name and make it legible yet draw. Like I'm not an artist at all. Like,
Yeah,
but just the way he was breaking down how the pyramid style of that type of art and
yeah.
I mean I still, it's like out of everything, the Butchered at Birth album art, I mean, this is like,
Yeah, that's the one he showed off, and
yeah. When I was a kid and I saw this for the first time, I was like, oh my god, this is where life takes a wrong turn for and
like,
I start sniffing
bye.
glue or something,
Well, I guess real quick we can kind of get started with. I'm just gonna do a quick introduction to like the classic lineup, which these dudes originally from Buffalo is Chris Barnes, Bob Rusey on lead guitar, which he was on for the first 3 albums up till The Bleeding, and then Jack Owen on rhythm, which I think we all know him for. He's I think been with Deicide, right, since departing Cannibal.
I don't think he's with Deicide any longer, but yeah,
okay,
for a good bit he was with Deicide.
And then Alex Webster, of course, and Paul Mazurkiewicz.
Yep, Mazurkiewicz.
Mazurkiewicz, man, luck on that one. And they've been the only 2 like full time since the beginning.
Yeah, Alex and Paul are the constant.
Yeah. And then Rob Barrett is going to join on the last album we talk about tonight, The Bleeding. So,
yeah.
Which, yeah. So I guess, I mean, first off, like these, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that they're probably the most well-known death metal band, period. I think if anyone thinks death metal, like one of the first bands that are going to think of is Cannibal Corpse. And I just found out they've sold over 2 million albums in total, which is pretty impressive for
a death metal band.
A band with Tomb of the Mutilated and Butchered at Birth as albums in their repertoire. It's fucking insane.
One of the first times they came on my radar was, I think, during that whole PMRC.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s, I remember.
Tipper Gore.
And Bob Dole too.
Yeah, that was what I remember. Bob Dole especially. He was taking issue with Cannibal Corpse, and that just made all the kids want to go listen to it.
Yep.
It put a spotlight on there because he was. I don't know if at the time he said that, if he was just a senator, but at one time he was a
candidate.
He was a presidential candidate. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, he was a pretty well-known politician, calling out this freaking death metal band. It only helped. I'm sure.
Yeah. There's so Metal Blade, honestly, they do a great job of uploading like all of their documentaries and stuff on their bands up to YouTube. So there's the Centuries of Torment documentary up on YouTube, which is like 3 hours of just very detailed Cannibal Corpse history. It's fucking really awesome and definitely worth watching. And the members talk about being called out by Bob Dole, and they were just like, thank God for Bob Dole.
Yeah.
He gave us like the biggest boost in our popularity,
Oh yeah,
no doubt.
It was like they were saying that Bob Dole called them out as a way to shame them.
Yep.
And they're like, well, we're not ashamed. We like what we're doing. And now we're on the biggest platform in the United States. Thank you.
And that didn't always occur like that, because if you guys remember when Body Count came out with that first album.
Oh
they
God!
had the song Cop Killer on it, and even the artwork, the guy in the front had Cop Killer tattooed on his chest, and with all the backlash, they took that song off the album, and then they removed the tattoo also, I believe.
Mm.
So did it make body count popular for getting called out? Maybe a little bit.
But also body count was awful. And Ice-T has no business making metal. So
What about acting?
I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know of him as is like a gangster rapper. Then that's it.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, I mean, I think it probably still gave body count some credit, just as it did with Cannibal.
Yeah.
But but Cannibal, they doubled down, and maybe it was just depending on the label that they were on. Like Brian Slagle was just was good with it, you know.
So I wonder, like, because Cannibal Corpse too, they've been on Metal Blade for like
Since
longer than any band has been on an underground label. And Metal Blade, I'm wondering if in the background they're owned by Sony or something. There's a lot of that, of like indie labels that are really owned by Sony or something like that. But Metal Blade, I think everything now, because there was Death Records, like their very early pressings. Because I have a first pressing of Butchered at Birth and Eaten Back to Life. And those are Death Records pressings, which I think Death Records was maybe like self-released. I'm not sure. I don't know the history of Death Records.
I think I remember reading. I think I remember if you guys have written or read Brian Slagle's book on Metal Blade. I think Death Records was like the extreme metal offshoot of Metal Blade. I think it was still under the Metal Blade umbrella.
Okay.
But it was, like some labels do that. Like, remember Relapse had that Release imprint that they would put like the weird industrial stuff under. Same label, just different name, I think. And then I think it just I think they dropped that whole Death Records thing.
Okay. All right.
I think that's how it went.
We'll have to see. I'm assuming this is Nick over here with an OG Eaten Back to Life.
Yeah,
what label was that on?
Well, the Death Records one also referenced Metal Blade.
Yeah, So according to the archives, the parent label of Death Records is Metal Blade. So that's correct.
Okay. So they were. So yeah, probably one of the longest, if not the longest, running band with Metal Blade.
Oh, sure.
Which, yeah, I mean,
1990 to the present.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 33 years.
Yeah, wow.
That's crazy. So I guess to kind of keep moving, what was your general introduction to Cannibal Corpse? Chris, I'll just go like this. So starting with you.
My introduction to Cannibal Corpse.
Or like, how'd you find out about him?
I had a friend who, because during that time, I was more into industrial and, Skinny Puppy and synth pop and Ministry and stuff like that. But then I started to get into Slayer and Headbangers Ball. And because you're talking like probably like 92, maybe around then. So, I was in high school and I think when was it? Yeah, because this was also the time when I moved with my mother from Chicago to Maryland. And so I started hanging out with some new people in Maryland, and they were into like underground metal. And I had always been into heavy stuff, but I just wasn't in with a circle of friends who were into that type of stuff. And the first Cannibal Corpse that I was introduced to was Butchered at Birth, but that was also right when Tomb of the Mutilated came out, because I think they just came out like a year apart from each other. Like during that time, I think all the Chris Barnes stuff came out within like 4 years.
Yeah, wasn't it 91 was Butchered at Birth, and 92 Tomb?
And 1990 was Eaten Back to Life.
Yeah.
And then 95
or 4.
Yeah, for the bleeding. So for me, that's all of high school right there. And I remember hearing Hammer Smashed Face, and I was just like, this was because it had such a heavy pounding, like just the riffs and just the intro. And I was just like, that was, at that time, I thought Slayer was the heaviest, sickest shit around. And then I heard Hammer Smash Face, and I'm like, holy fuck, and I saw, the album artwork, and I'm like, okay, I've reached a new level here by learning about this band. And so, yes, my first introduction was Butchered at Birth, but it was right when Tomb of the Mutilated was brand new. That's how I was introduced, and it was Hammer Smashed Face because they have a video for that one, and that's what really piqued my interest in them. Mm-hmm. And yeah, they were in the Thralls, I guess. Nick, yeah, they were in the Ace Ventura movie. But yeah, I don't know. It was something here. I'd never heard anything like that before. Just like metal, just the way it was produced. Just the way it was just so just in your face and just brutal. It was, I had never heard metal that sounded like that before. So yeah, that and since then, man,
definitely a next level. You said that was the decision, that was like the wrong turn decision, right? Picking up the Tomb of the Mutilated CD.
Yeah,
you said sniffing glue after this.
Yeah. After that, it's like, ooh,
it's all downhill.
That's where it all starts.
Brian, what you got?
Yeah, I think my introduction was around 1993. I was still, I was just kind of dipping my toes into death metal at the time. I think Obituary was probably the first one I listened. Well, no, Deicide, Master. Those were kind of the first three I had listened to. It kind of piqued my interest, and then I started, going to stores and flipping through their CDs and looking at the artwork, and getting more, doing more of those, what we would call blind buys. Now is kind of buying stuff based on the artwork. Started reading Metal Maniacs and Pit Magazine. And then I think it was a Headbangers Ball episode in 93. And I don't know, Chris, you might have seen this one. It was when Ricky Rackman was interviewing Chris and Chuck, and they were like out on the beach somewhere in Florida. And I believe they showed the music video for Hammer Smash Face on that episode.
I can't remember, but I know it. I know it's out there.
And then later on, the Bleeding had come out, and I remember I used to record, on Saturday nights from 10 to midnight. I'd record it on my VHS player, so I could listen to music. If there's anything good, listen to it again. And they played the music video for Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead. I don't know if Logan, you've seen that music video, and it's like, it's all black and white, and it's like really, it's cut. We've got these fast.
It's frantic,
very frantic. It's like an operating table and operating surgery stuff going on. But yeah, I'd never heard anything like that before. I was getting into like Obituary, which is more kind of groove laden and kind of bare bones. And this was something different. And then when I started going back to the store and looking at the album cover and the song titles for their stuff, I was like, do I really want to get into this? Because it was scary. I mean, not scary, but am I really going to take this? The thing was buying it, taking it to the front, and being a 16-year-old kid, they had that label on it that that sticker on it. You weren't sure if they'd sell it to you.
Mm.
Or what they think of if they looked at it, if they, if the person up at the counter,
Right.
And I didn't think like, well, you're the one selling it. Like, what's the matter? But that was kind of,
like, don't you want my money?
I was a teenager. So
did you go through with buying it then as a 16-year-old?
Well, after a number of stores, I'm sure, looking through it, picking it up, putting it down, moving on to something else, coming back, looking at it, finally I did.
What was the first one you bought? Was it The Bleeding?
The Bleeding, yeah. On cassette tape because it was a little easier to hide.
I was going to say, The Bleeding you could at least kind of get away with, I feel like, in comparison to Butchered at Birth or on the front. Yeah, if they flipped it over and looked at this, like, that song number 2, you would have been fucked with a knife, I think.
Yeah.
Totally. Tonight the song titles, it'll...
So that one went in a shoebox under my bed. And I would only
go
on, I think, headphones. I'm pretty sure. Not that anyone could understand what Chris Barnes is saying, from my bedroom, but just to be safe.
Cannibal Corpse's shoebox, worthy for sure.
Yeah, under the bed, shoebox with the rest of the unmentionables. The rest of the what do you call it? Contraband. The teenage contraband.
Mm-hmm.
Like
a couple Playboys and stuff.
A hustler and
yeah. Right.
All right, so before I jump in, I want to get in on this beer game that you guys are drinking. This is my beer of the night right here. White Zombie, White Ale. This is my official Cannibal Corpse beer.
Nice.
I mean, just look at that.
Yeah, that's cool.
a Cannibal Corpse on it. It's light, easy to drink, for better or worse. This is beer number 5 out of a 6-pack I got. So
they're going down smooth.
They're going down smooth. Yes. I hopefully my head will not feel like it's been smashed with a hammer yesterday or tomorrow. I mean,
I'm gonna grab another one real fast.
There you go. So for me, my introduction was a little bit later. Like, you guys actually got into them during the Barnes era. Like, I didn't.
Yeah. Toward the end. Yeah.
Yeah. But that means you got to see like the transition from Barnes being Cannibal, and you got to see the splinter effect after, and
Yeah, and it was big news in the metal publications for sure. Because they were a huge band, and it happened after Chris had started 6 Feet Under. Like, in the beginning, 6 Feet Under was a side project, right? It was a quote unquote death metal supergroup. Terry Butler played on that first album. Obituary. It wasn't a full-time. It wasn't a full-time band at the time when it first came out. They were on Metal Blade as well. It had that relationship.
They kind of forced it into a full-time band. I feel like. Well, when they kicked them out, they were
that first 6 Feet Under album is awesome, and I remember like when that came out. It was kind of, I don't know if it was official, because I think that came out when Chris Barnes was still technically with Cannibal Corpse.
Yes.
Oh, it did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's why I meant it. He was like still a side project. Like, this wasn't he had not left the band. I want to say, so The Bleeding came out in 94.
Yeah, was that 95? Haunted.
Haunted came out in, 95.
Which, because they released the what is it? That little EP of him singing some songs that were going to be on Vile in 95, right?
Created to Kill.
Created to Kill, yeah. So it must have been that within a couple months of it.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely, and we're going to talk about 6 Feet Under a little bit after the ranking. And I'm definitely curious about your guys' take on how it was moving forward with the two different bands.
Well, the Created to Kill, I think that's a bootleg. Those were never officially released.
No, yeah. But it's got Barnes singing, and I think it was recorded in 1995 though.
Yeah.
Like him being a part of it. So, but yeah, for me, I didn't like. I first heard of Cannibal probably it was like 2011 or late 2010. So it was a bit later, uh, and it was definitely I was 16. A buddy of mine gave me just a ripped copy of Tomb of the Mutilated, and Chris, was very similar to what you were talking about when you heard Hammer Smash Face. You're just like, this shit is next level, like stuff I've not experienced before ever, and stuff I don't know if I'm like ready to experience really. And then I see the name of the next song is "I Come Blood," and I'm just like, I'm out. and and it was really like a love-hate relationship for like the first year of having that, where I would, every now and then I'd be like, I really want to hear that intro because I love the intro to Hammer Smash Face. I mean, like up until like the vocals came in, like especially like the little bass solo part, that shit's fucking sick. So then I would be able to finally get through Hammer Smash Face, and then I slowly warmed up to I Come Blood, and then I remember I got to Addicted to Vaginal Skin with the sample, and then I was out again. I was like, and it took me forever to come back to it that time. And actually, after that, I ended up finding a used copy of The Bleeding, and I got that, and that was just a lot more palatable compared to Tomb of the Mutilated. So The Bleeding was really the first album that kind of clicked of theirs. Like Tomb of the Mutilated, I still hold in high regard because it was the first thing that I heard, but like I wasn't able to fully get into it until after I heard The Bleeding, and the just slower, groovier kind of sound that came with it, and really just catchier songwriting too. And I think a pro, at least, especially when you're like just getting in to Cannibal Corpse and you're in that younger headspace, is you can't hear any of the lyrics at all. A big pro. If I could make it out, I think I would have been
well, you
too
know
fed
what,
up
though,
with it.
is the problem is when we were younger and we were kids, we had shitty stereos. Like
That's
we just
true.
had like a boom box that just had the CD player on the top, and you just put it in and close the lid. Dude, I was listening to Cannibal Corpse today, and I have a sick stereo system. I mean, I showed you guys what I have. My system is sick.
I had Barbara on it.
And I was playing, yeah, I mean, Logan, you've experienced it. And I was playing Cannibal Corpse so loud today, and it's like, holy shit, I can hear every word Chris Barnes is saying.
Yes.
But like, just when you play it fucking loud, it's just, I think that's the thing too, is with his vocals, because they were so guttural and low, that when we were younger, we were used to shitty stereo systems where it,
rickwalled it.
The bass and everything, just it wasn't audible just because it was a crappy fucking $80 Sanyo that we were listening to it on, or like in our cars, we would play. I know plenty of times of playing metal and in my car really loud, but today I was like, oh my god, I can actually make out what he's saying, which doesn't matter to me. I don't really care about lyrics, but
yeah, I would. My kind of listening at that time period was, putting the CD in and then going to the lyric sheet and following along, with the vocals and getting the phrasing that way. And if I could, sometimes I get lost, because he does have that guttural. And of course, on The Bleeding, he started, well, not The Bleeding, but, he did a lot of the screeching type vocal style.
That's definitely when he brought it in. And to me, the Bleeding is like one of my favorite vocal albums. Like I really love his performance on The Bleeding. And it was one of those, did you ever go through that phase where you try to like actually scream along with like the, some of your favorite death metal songs and stuff?
Sure, but I do it like under my breath, so I'm not like full, tilt. I'm like, I'm whisper growling. You know what I mean?
But like what if you're like in the car on the interstate, just driving a long ass
Yeah.
fucking way? I mean, I don't know. That was one of those albums where I would try to like memorize the lyrics to a couple of like the bigger songs, and
Right.
because it was easy and fun to, or that at least that album was for sure.
Yeah, and I think later, lyrically, he was a really good songwriter back then. Nowadays maybe not so much, but or lyricist. Back then it really worked, and because he created these, I don't know, stories or these characters that he would play, or these situations that he would create.
Mm-hmm.
And would use his vocals to emphasize, different things, like in some of the songs, the first, couple songs on the Bleeding.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I kind of, because I don't pay attention to lyrics or like the message or anything. I just have always viewed vocals as another instrument.
Yeah.
I've never really cared about what they're talking about. And I was actually reading some of the lyrics, and I'm going back, and it's like a lot of this is, I feel like a lot of it is like, I Come Blood. After I read deeper into it, I think it's about a girl who likes to have sex on her period, and like there's the same with Addicted to Vaginal Skin. Is like, okay, he likes to go down on a woman, and but the symbolism that just sort of like the image that it's created is like, here's this simple thing of, I was with a girl who loved to have sex on her period. She would never admit it, but she loved it. And, something like that, that's pretty brutal. But, and then taking something simple like that, but then creating like a death metal song out of it, like where, especially back then in the early 90s, where it's like, well, it needs to be about dead children and skulls and stuff, yeah. I when I lived in New York, I worked with this guy who was a graphic designer for Relapse, like in the very early days. And he was like, he even said that one of their things about early graphic design for them was like, oh yeah, just put more skulls in the layout. That was the solution to everything. Yeah, just put more skulls in there. Like just willy-nilly. Yeah, okay, needs more skulls. Just to make it more metal. And I kind of feel like that's how maybe Barnes's lyrics at that time was. Yeah. Okay, how can I take something like this, and then just make it metal,
And I think that's a big answer for explaining kind of their trajectory, and maybe, I mean, definitely their subject matter, and definitely like if anyone's gonna throw like a misogynist tag or anything like that at Cannibal Corpse, they're purely going for shock value. They're like, what? Mm-hmm. How can we make this the most shocking, metal, intense, and brutal thing? And that's it. Like I think when you read the lyrics, that's kind of how they come off for the most part. Like, oh, definitely like as individual stories, but stories where they intentionally are above and beyond, over the top in like schlock,
Right? Yeah.
And it's entertaining. I mean, it's fucking fun entertainment. No different than like the 80s slasher films. Like, you like Maniac, you're gonna like Cannibal Corpse,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the inspiration for a lot of lyrics is like, watching a movie about World War II, and here's this, something that happened, and then, the dude writes a song just about, something that happened like that. I don't think writing lyrics is this as complex poetic process that we sort of like. I've never been musically gifted at all, I have no clue about how to write music. I just know how to spend money on it. But I don't think that the process is anywhere near as storybook like as we tend to kind of think of it as being, you know, of sitting under a tree in a park and, you know, and things like that.
Probably not.
It definitely depends on like the person, but I think especially if the band is younger, you know, they're just seeing kind of what sticks, you know. But I guess real quick for the next thing is, and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but do you see what is the distinction between these two different eras as we're about to actually talk about like the Barnes discography? Like, do you see them as almost two separate bands or an extension of the same band? You know, like how did you go about viewing Barnes versus Corpse Grinder?
Well, it was, you know, initially I think I was a little hesitant. I think I read stuff about, you know, the vocalist of Monstrosity was taken over. They showed some pictures, and I bought Vile, you know, just kind of based on name alone. But, you know, about 5 or 10 seconds into that first song, Devoured
by Merman. Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think things are going to be okay. And I think Vile's a great album. And I think Corpse Grinder was able to bring something to the band that they needed at the time, maybe new blood, someone who could go a little faster. Maybe their velocity started increasing as well. It seemed like as they went on, they dropped a little bit of that groove that they had on like Butchered at Birth and Tomb and Mutilated, Bleeding, in favor of some more complexities. I think when Pat O'Brien came in the band, that increased as well. I think he was a big part of that. But yeah, I just think it seemed like, you know, it was just maybe a split that they just had different, you know, Chris had a different philosophy where he wanted to go with music, and, you know, Paul and Alex had Aaron, Jack, you know, had the direction they wanted to go, and they just weren't compatible at the time. I mean, like you said, I think if you watch that excellent 3-hour Centuries of Torment documentary, it lays it all out. But as a fan, I was, so, you know, in a nutshell, as a fan, I was a little hesitant, but, you know, once that scream comes out of Corpse Grinder on Devoured by Vermin, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll go for it. And I've seen them live 3 times, and it's always been Corpse Grinder. Never saw them before with Barnes. I've never seen 6 Feet Under. I've never had the ability to. I mean, they tour, but I just, you know, I've never taken the time to see them.
Yeah.
So that's my personal preference. I think it's, you know, it's the same band. It's just, you know, different eras, just like every band has different eras. And now we talk about it. I mean, he's been in the band over 20 years now, right?
Yep. 15 albums, 11 with him, and
pretty
4
good run
with Corpse Grinder. Yeah.
Yeah. And they never like, they really have never put out a bad, they've never, you know, some of these legendary death metal bands, you know, Morbid Angel has the one, you know, that people talk about. Obituaries put out a couple stinkers, not terrible, but Deicide has put out some rough albums. Entombed, like, totally changed their style. You know, a lot of these bands, you know, had these metamorphoses, but Cannibal Corpse has always kind of stayed Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
regardless of the era, in my opinion. That's my thought on the changeover.
Chris, what you got on the what did you call them earlier? The
Corporate
corporate
Cannibal,
Corpse.
which I think is actually a very good.
I agree. I mean, I'm not. I wouldn't.
Well,
yeah.
Okay, so do you want to get me started on the logo, or I love the fact.
Oh man.
I love the fact that, what is it, 25 years now, Corpse Grinder's been in the single, or because that's when the logo changed too.
Yes. Which
So,
do you know why they did that?
Because Barnes drew the original logo.
Yes. Yeah.
And the thing is, and that's the thing, is that when Vile came out, and I remember, the opening song, and I didn't listen to Vile before this. I haven't listened to Vile in years, but I'll go back and listen to it. New singer, new logo, and clearly a more cleaned up, business friendly logo. The same thing with Brian. I was like, okay, I'm good now. I'm good. But there's still something about Barnes's vocals that are more raw and imperfect that I like. And yes, Corpse Grinder. Well, also, I'm sick of the name Corpse Grinder. He's George Fisher. Just drop.
You can
just
call him
drop
George
the
Fisher.
nickname. His Instagram thing, he's a big silly dad who likes,
Likes Target and plush animals.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so he's a silly dad. He loves his kids. I kind of like my metal singers to have a checkered past, of I kind of want them to hey, you know what, if maybe there's a bit of child abuse in their history or something, or that kind of just adds to the mystique, to the veneer of being a metal vocalist.
Save that for the Neurosis stream, please.
Right, exactly. But when they're a big silly dad who loves his kids and all that, I'm kind of let down, because I never really had a father, so I'm kind of, I kind of want the image of the metal dad, not the big silly dad.
He does lose a bit of he loses a bit of credibility when he's up there, singing some of these songs, and then Instagram photos like his daughters on Christmas morning,
Yeah. And they're all sitting around wearing matching pajamas or something like that. But yeah, just drop the Corpse Grinder thing. Just go by George Fisher. I'm at this point with metal now. I'm just sick of metal nicknames. Just use just use your birth name, and that's it. That's more metal than any fucking nickname that you can come up with. But that's the thing, is yes, George Fisher is a better vocalist, but
he
is a better vocalist better for metal? I don't know, because I like the imperfect vocalist, and I still think that at the time with the Barnes era stuff, his vocals, I had never heard vocals like that before. And nowadays, like death metal, everything is so processed and Pro Tools, filters and everything. Back then, that was raw fucking death metal vocals, and that's really what I like about that. Is Barnes's imperfect vocals. But yeah, I don't know. Like Cannibal Corpse, once they got George Fisher and they got the new logo, it was clear that they were going in a different direction musically, but bands do that, it's, with their early stuff, maybe to them, it's not as polished as they wanted their earlier stuff to be. I don't know. I mean, I know the drummer, he's been with them, Paul. He's
Yeah.
been with them like forever. I think the bassist and the drummer are the only dudes who've been with the band forever.
Yeah,
But
Alex and
Yeah.
Paul.
yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to who owns the rights to the music, you know. And
I mean, I think it's them. I don't know what they pulled when they kicked, got Barnes out, which I'm sure they pay, royalties and stuff. But
Probably.
you don't see Barnes doing a, Cannibal Corpse first four only live set or anything like that. Which
yeah,
I feel like if he
No.
could, he would. I feel like.
And I'm not familiar. Since I've never seen 6 Feet Under, I don't know if he's ever played any
That's true.
songs live. I just don't know
I
Yeah.
think
about that. I bet he has, but
I think I remember on YouTube a long, long time ago seeing 6 Feet Under doing Cannibal Corpse
okay.
covers.
Yeah.
Um,
I would be surprised if he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, probably.
Okay.
I'd imagine that if Barnes doesn't own the rights to the lyrics, then he probably gets royalties anytime they play any of his songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is every show.
Like I'm sure
Oh, yeah.
he still gets money from that era, but
Sure.
like the whole music itself though, I feel like he does not own. Like, yeah.
I'm not sure how that whole thing works with
It's true.
royalties
It's true.
and
Neither do I.
playing it live.
Neither do I.
It'd be interesting to learn about, but
Yeah. For me, I like since I came in so late to Cannibal Corpse. I mean, like Torture was the first album I heard, was there for during the new cycle of releases for albums, and I mean, I immediately fell in love with that release. I mean, it might still be my favorite Cannibal Corpse album. Truthfully, like if we were to do an overall ranking, I think Torture would fall towards the top, if not competing with the number one that we'll come to tonight as well. But like I definitely view them as the same, just because I'm looking back in almost a historical fashion at the first four as like a historical piece more so than actually being there for them,
Mm-hmm.
And the modern Cannibal Corpse, I mean, they pay respect when they play. You need live sets. They make sure to play at least one song from each of the first four albums, and they kind of change it up.
Yeah.
Like I've seen them twice live with the George Fisher, if you will, and I mean they played Gutted one time off of Butchered at Birth, and then the next time I saw them, they played Covered in Swords off of Butchered at Birth. So they're changing it up, and they do that for each of the four albums, where they'll play like at least one or two from each of those songs, each of those albums. But I think one thing I will say about the eras, and this definitely ties into what you were saying, Chris, about the corporate Cannibal, is that when you felt like Cannibal hit a groove, especially after Kill, they've kind of just maintained it. And they've released albums that are like, they're all in the same formula. They've released albums that are better with that formula and not as good with that formula, but they've just been all the same formula. So that really makes a discography of the, Corpse Grinder era where it's like interchangeable. Like, you can swap an album here. You don't necessarily need this one here. They're all a little bit of the same, kind of. With the Chris Barnes stuff, each one is very linear. They're unique. They progress from album to album. You can hear how this band is changing, making little tweaks from Eaten Back to Life to Butchered at Birth and so on and so forth. There really are all four very unique, and you're seeing this band grow and progress, and it's really exciting. Like I enjoyed re-listening to all four of these in succession as I was preparing, to do this, because I was just listening to a band make changes and really become just better songwriters and just find their own sound, you know. And really, even in the big echelon of death metal, I think their sound is still very unique, just because of how unpolished and unapologetically like brutal, especially like Butcher Dead Birth and Tomb of the Mutilated. I mean, those two albums are so savage, I think, in comparison to an album like, you know, Covenant or Cause of Death, you know.
Well, you know, the thing too is, for as long as they've been around, what, like 17 albums now?
15.
They've still put out consistently good albums.
They do.
Like,
They do.
Even though, like, I'm not really a fan of the later stuff. I haven't even really listened to much of it. But it still has been consistently good metal. Like, they haven't done, like, the Cold Lake or that Morbid Angel album that's like industrial garbage or something, like, or you know, like they don't have that turd in the Flower Garden. Yes, some of it is repetitive, and you know there is a formula there, but they don't have that turd in the Flower Garden, you know, like.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They've consistently put out good death metal. Even though I haven't been into a lot of the later stuff, it still has been consistently good.
Yep. I mean, I love the formula that they have, truthfully. Like, it's, yeah, I agree with you. Sorry, what were you going to say, Brian?
And they're an easy band to respect, you know, for the reasons that Chris mentioned earlier. Like, you know, they just seem like, you know, just good people, good human beings, you know.
They do.
Who play the claw machine and you know, give the winnings to charity or whatever. Who goes to, I don't know if anyone's not seen that that video that they did a while ago, but it's Chris Barr, or it's George, you know, shopping for clearance at Target. Like, it's just it's just crazy to think, like, he's on tour, you know, in the evening he's going to be singing all these songs, but in the day he's like looking for Star Wars Lego sets and trying to figure out where he's going to put them in his suitcase, you know, because he doesn't have room, you know, to bring all this stuff home, all this cool stuff he finds for cheap at Target. Like, that's the shit I do.
I mean, I can relate
I go
to that.
shopping for toys on clearance at Target. Like, it makes me relate to him and them in that kind of way, which for Chris is a negative, but for me it's a plus, you know.
Chris, I still got you on that, man. If you want your like checkered past, like sketchy dude, you got Pat O'Brien, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
That guy fucking like tried to burn down a house and had like a armory in his fucking place.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
a crazy story.
So
he's playing with is he playing with Violence?
You know, I don't know.
No,
actually, I know he's playing with someone.
He's playing live with some. I'll have to look that up.
Did they? Is he not in Cannibal Corpse anymore?
No, he got replaced by Eric Rutan.
Yeah, Rutan became a full-time member.
Which Rutan is killing it, by the way. I think. Like I love.
He's a beast.
He is.
Think about this: Eric Rutan, Ripping Corpse, Morbid Angel, Hate Eternal, and now Cannibal Corpse. Like, that's quite a resume.
You want to see
producing work, you know?
Yeah, and he had that produced the last couple Cannibal.
Yeah, or just all the other shit he's produced, been a part of. That's quite the impressive resume, right there.
Yeah, I mean, they're in good hands with Rutan. What is this one?
Abhorrence, South America, produced by Eric Rutan and Gene Publeski from Angel Corpse.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit!
And yeah, dude, this is a fucking sick. This is like probably one of my favorite South American death metal albums, and I actually want to do like kind of just a stream about them because they fucking sick. But yeah, like right here, mastered by Yeah, here, Gene Pawlowski and Eric Rutan right there.
Oh, nice.
That's
What year?
cool. I didn't know.
What year did that come out?
92, maybe.
Wow.
Really?
Evoking the Abomination, dude. This album is sick.
I've never even
If
heard
you
of it.
find it, like, if you're on, if it's on your like Spotify, I know it's an Apple Music.
I'm looking it up now just to see. You said Abhorrence?
Yeah, but this is like, because there's that Finnish Abhorrence that I talk about in my hype sticker video. This is that these guys were from Brazil. And this is fucking sick, man. Yeah, Eric Rutan, anything he touches turns to gold.
So Pat O'Brien right now plays live for Ex Hoarder.
Yeah, okay.
I think he played with them at Maryland Death Fest or one of the fests out there. So at least he's back playing music. But yeah, at the time I think they had to move on. You know,
Yes.
he had to deal with whatever was going on with his case.
And I don't remember if he ended up going to jail or not because of that, or if it was just legal stuff. But yeah. So there's your checkered stuff, man. So now you can listen to the Cannibal Corpse up until the new album because
they got some street cred.
It's got Pat O'Brien on it. So there's the Target shopper, and now there's the meth taking Florida man.
Was it? No, it wasn't.
Good.
Might have been Bass.
No. Sorry. I don't know. I just know he had the armory, but
yeah.
Dude, you guys ready to do a rank of the first four? Let's rank them, Chris.
So am I starting with my least favorite to my favorite? Is that what we're doing?
Yep.
4 to 1.
Yep. You gotta end on the high point, man. You can't.
Okay, so
you can't blow the load too soon. All
right, and then just a reminder to everybody watching: we're only talking about the Chris Barnes stuff.
Yes,
which is the true Cannibal Corpse.
Just a reminder: Chris does not speak for everyone in the everyone in the stream.
Okay, so my least favorite Chris Barnes Cannibal Corpse album is The Bleeding.
I knew you were going to do that one.
The Bleeding, and here's the thing that I discovered. Everyone thinks that this cover right here, that this is, you know, a woman's private parts. No, it's right there on the dude's abdomen.
Yeah.
And this album, it has moments where it's really fucking good, but they do things with Barnes's vocals that I don't like. And that was something too that for 90s, sort of that like mid 90s metal, when a lot of bands were kind of like sort of dabbling in sort of a new sound, and so they would introduce sort of like weird vocal effects. This is the album when they started to do some weird vocal effects that I don't like, and there are a lot of like breakdowns in this one too that I don't like, and bad breakdowns were just a part of, were not unique to just, you know, this album. There were a lot of bad breakdowns because early 90s is when bands started to experiment with breakdowns, but nobody perfected the breakdown yet. So it's sort of like, okay, here's this breakdown, but then this weird, you know, okay, let's get back into the music, not knowing how to like get the breakdown to seamlessly go back into the song. I mean, you know what? It's difficult to explain because I'm not a musician, but there are breakdowns on this album that I don't like, and there are a lot of them, and this is definitely my least favorite Barnes era Cannibal Corpse album. There are some good songs, like song number 2. Song number 3, I don't like at all. That one's kind of annoying. Song number 2 on side B is good. So Force Fed Broken Glass is a classic song. Mm-hmm. But a lot of this album, it just doesn't resonate with me. I would say song number 2 is like the one song off of this album that really kind of sticks with me. Other than that, it just never really clicked with me.
I kind of suspected it was,
yeah.
That was where it's going to stack up for you, because that's the grooviest.
Yeah, but
they do the breakdowns too, as you mentioned.
Yeah, the groove, they weren't a groove metal band. You know, if Meshuggah, you know, did something like that, it probably would have been a lot better. But they, you know, and maybe it has to do with Scott Burns producing them and trying to like finesse their sound or something. But they just weren't that type of band. They're just a punishing, pummeling death metal band, not a groove metal band.
What did you think of the production on that one?
The production was definitely cleaner, but cleaner like Tomb of the Mutilated and this one have like a similar type of sound to them and production quality. But it's a lot of the things that they, on certain songs, like Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, like things that they did with Barnes's vocals that I just don't like at all. But it was also, a lot of that was happening in the mid 90s at that time with metal bands, because the whole like just punishing death metal thing was kind of passe. So they wanted to add, spice up their sound some to, because bands like Fear Factory were gaining popularity and Nail Bomb and that type of sound was getting big.
Of course, Pantera was like on top of the world at that point.
Yeah.
Metallica was still going strong, but man, Pantera really that crunch that they had. A lot of bands were trying to capture some of that.
Yeah.
Extreme metal bands were, you know what I mean?
I think too, like the Bleeding, the time when it came out, it feels like it's kind of like with music contracts is like, okay, in X number of years, we need this number of albums, to be really as part of like, their contract. And which is a lot of times too, why there have been in the past where bands will just put out a bogus shitty album just to get out of the contract.
Right.
And to me, the album, it feels like simple or easy compared to their earlier stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a musician. It's just my least enjoyable listen by Barnes. The Barnes era.
Yeah. For me, the first 4, I kind of separate them into two pairs, I guess. And the later era albums, I just I got into first. So the early stuff, I didn't pick up on physical format until I was into my 20s, and it just didn't. I was consuming so much music at that time because of Napster and downloading that I just did not give that early stuff the listening that I did with the others. So Eating Back to Life is my least favorite of the first 4. Not to say it's bad or anything. It's just, this is just where it's sized up for me. Corporate Logo, obviously, because at the time As I was flipping through all the racks, I looked at this one a whole bunch, and there was always just something else that I decided to take a chance on instead. I don't know why. I saw this at Best Buy and Music Land and Sam Goody and Camelot Music and other local record stores a whole lot, and just was never purchased. I do think they still play. I think when I saw them last time in November on that tour with
Dark Funeral, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they played A Skull Full of Maggots. Born in a Casket is a great song. They're all, shredded. The first track, Shredded Humans, Edible Autopsy. It's a little more thrashier than the other things, the later stuff. But yeah, it's just, I listened to this, once this week to kind of re-familiarize myself, and it's just one of those I never really got deep into. So Eating Back to Life is, I guess, number 4 on the list for me.
Yeah, dude, I this is going to be the sword stream all over again. I'm telling you right now. I'm calling it. It's gonna break down like the sword. Brian, what you said about breaking it into like 2 separate eras, exact same way for me. Where the latter 2 was in the first. I've had, at this point for me, a decade of experience with both of over a decade with both of those albums, and then the other 2, a couple years. And I don't think that's why I rank it the way that I do. I'm pretty sure, like, regardless, I would still fall into the ranking that I have. But to me, the first 2 in my number 4, which is the same as you, Eating Back to Life, is just the least like Cannibal Corpse to me. Like, this very much comes off like a very, very thrashy, very quick, and like all the songs kind of blend together a little bit with that same like guitar sound, and which I think the guitar tone itself doesn't sound very Cannibal Corpse. It sounds closer to Metallica, honestly, or like that like later 80s thrash sound. Like there's a lead in the final track, Buried in the Backyard, which sounds like it came off of like Master of Puppets kind of Metallica. And just this album overall is fun and it's quick, but it's not something that I guess ever truly clicked with me, and not something that when I'm pulling for Cannibal Corpse that I go back to, I mean, there's some great songs on here too, and there's some really fun like quick songs as well that I think almost lean like towards that thrash and like almost like punky kind of sound. I mean, tracks like Put Them to Death, Bloody Chunks, and Rotting Head are all like right around the 2 minutes, and they're fun. They don't overstay their welcome, and they're quick and out. But I think that contributes to it not being as memorable. Still, you got some great songs on here, like track 5, Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains. I mean, gotta love the song titles. That has like the one hint of melody on the overall album. And of course, Born in the Casket and Skull Full of Maggots, which, I mean, that the crowd chanting for Skull Full of Maggots is just fucking awesome. Both times I've seen them live, they play that song, and that shit's great.
Skull Full of Maggots.
Yeah, Skull Full of Maggots. That's Yeah, that's the only one I think I've seen them play live off of this album. Like, I wish I could have seen them play "Born in a Casket" too.
Yeah, I
but
saw them play that once.
yeah,
One of the times I saw them.
yeah. So for me, just that one, and then I like the closing song, "Buried in the Backyard." It's like the long. It's like about 5 minutes, and like 3 minutes of it is like instrumental and very like late 90s thrash sounding, like that death thrash kind of sound. Like it could be like Demolition Hammer, maybe. But I just, the guitar tone is just not what I'm looking for from Cannibal Corpse, truthfully, with this one. I do want to say that this is the only Cannibal Corpse album that I have on vinyl. So this is one of the recent represses. And actually, I won this one from a Melanie Loves Death Metal contest that she did.
Ooh.
So yeah, this is this is one of those contest winnings. Like, I only have like maybe one or two, but this is you can't see it too well, but it's like one of the clear light blood.
Yep.
It's cool. It's one of my favorite. Like, if we were to ever do like a stream based solely on like record variants and color variants and splatter variants, this would be one that I would pull out where I'd be like, this shit's cool. This is why I would buy or, you know, win for free.
I'd be the snob there just with the black vinyl.
Yes, and
I only listen to black vinyl.
I think Metal Blade.
I'd appreciate that balance.
I think Metal Blade did a repressing of one of their. It might have been Too Mutilated, but they did like a skin colored variant. That was really fitting for this band.
Yeah, like when it's something like that where it's almost like it's ripped off the album cover itself. I'm like, man, I'm here for it. That just is just killer packaging. If it's something that is off the wall or just doesn't make sense, like a butterfly wing splatter. Yeah, that's, as I said, that's for a different stream.
Oh, trust me, I already have yeah.
Let's do it.
I'm already planning that.
All right, Chris, number 3.
For me, my number 3 is Eaten Back to Life.
Yeah.
This album really grew on me after a while, like a long time ago. And I went through a phase where I thought this album was just fucking awesome. And this was my favorite because, after a while, I just got burnt out from Butchered and from Tomb. And I went back and listened to this and I'm like, wow, this is a really good album. It definitely wasn't as tight as, Tomb and Butchered. And it wasn't the Cannibal sound that we're used to. But that's what I like about it. And it's more raw sounding. But it also, songs like Rotting Head.
Yeah.
Something like that is like, okay, these were songs where, these guys were kids and they wrote this. It's not in any way a masterpiece, but for this style of kind of like thrash infused death metal, and this was like 1990 when this came out too. I think it's a really good album. And even if Tomb and Butchered weren't in the picture of ranking them, I still would rate this much higher than 3 if, the other ones weren't, part of the ranking. I think this is a really good album, and I was listening to it today, and I would put it on again. It's really solid. I really like it. Skull Full of Maggots, Shredded Humans, the opener, Born in a Casket, Rotting Head. I just I love that because it sounds like something a teenager would write, just like an angry teenager.
Like, what if it's just a head, but it's rotting?
Head. Yeah.
That's fucking brutal.
You know, it's like trying to be
You're just
ultra
one-upping.
grotesque, but just didn't know how to be ultra grotesque. You know, like
you're like, get this: scattered remains, splattered brains.
Right? Yeah.
Fucking.
So yeah, bloody chunks. I do. I think this is a really good album. It doesn't get the recognition it deserves out of the classic Cannibal Corpse, but it's a really good album. I really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I don't disagree there.
And this is a Death Records OG too.
Which is wait, no, bring it back up. I wasn't even looking at the logo, which is the.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Nice.
Yep. I have 2 of these.
Of course.
Number 3 for me, back to the corporate logo reissue, Push It Birth. Again, not for any reason other than it just was something I got to a little later in life. But I will say, thinking about it here, in the last 10 years, I've probably listened to this and even Back to Life more than I have The Bleeding Tomb and Mutilated, for sure. Mm-hmm. Just in terms of how many times I've listened to them in that time span, for sure. Because I keep going back to these, just trying to put the time into them. Because I think the other 2 I just know front and back. Like we set out to do this ranking. I didn't even have to listen to the other 2. I just have spent so many hours listening to them both and combing through the lyrics that it wasn't really necessary. But there's some killer tracks on this. Gutted, Meat Hook Sodomy, Covered with Swords, of course, is probably the one they include in their live set the most, I would say. At least the times that I've seen them, I think they've played it all 3 times. Vomit the Soul is a cool one though. That one's got Glenn Benton on doing guest vocals, which back in this time period, it was very common to have other vocalists do like guest spots. If you look at the liner notes, you'll see, this artist appears courtesy of Roadrunner or Metal Blade or whatever. That happened a lot in this early kind of death metal scene. So I don't know if they've ever done that since. I'm not sure if any of the Corpse Grinder era albums have like a guest vocalist, a guest spot. And I wonder if maybe Benton's vocal style maybe rubbed off a little bit on Barnes, at least the kind of screeching aspect, because he seems to start it after this. Anyway, and I think Logan, you alluded to this in the opener and in your Instagram post. Rancid Amputation, man, that's a banger.
Yes,
that song rips.
Jesus,
and it seems to be a bit underrated as far as their discography. Their song, as far as how much that's even brought up in terms of just killer songs that they've written.
Yeah,
it's thinking back. This was another one I looked at the cover. I mean, a lot. I think I like the way the white is used, especially on her face. Just how ghostly pale it is.
Yeah.
And you start to see a little bit of the use of song titles as ideas for art direction. You got this guy covered in sores. Meat Hook Sodomy. in the back with some of these, hanging corpses. Yeah, I think you get, this is the start of maybe going for that shock value. Maybe not in terms of song titles. I mean, at the time, I guess these were pretty tame, but it's using like, the corpses of children.
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate
as
shock
art,
value.
as art.
Yeah.
I mean, that's gonna get some attention, as you're looking at it. Especially as they're pulling one out right here.
Pull one out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, and then of course the skull or the skeleton, right
Yep.
there. Or both, So I think it's funny to think of how much, at least I kind of got this perception that the Florida scene, the Tampa scene, was all centered around like Morrisound Studios. But thinking about all of the kind of classic bands from that area, or at least what I thought was that area, that a lot were actually transplants. I mean, Deicide and Obituary were both definitely originating in Florida and Death. Mm-hmm. But Cannibal Corpse, they started up in Buffalo. I think Morbid Angel started in South Carolina, right? Malevolent Creation, I think, started in New York State somewhere too.
Buffalo, yeah.
It was about the same time.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that for Malevolent, but
yeah. So it's just amazing how influential that studio was.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had bands flying over from England,
like Napalm Death and
Cancer, I think, came over to it's just pretty cool this scene, I guess, that they started down there. That seemed to be at the time was the epicenter of death metal. Was right there in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, that Morrisound Studios sound, I love it. I think that is like the heaviest production in just all of metal. And I've heard people complain before about how it sounds too identical, where you could hear an album and immediately know it was a Scott Burns album. But that's what I like, though. His production was just so heavy and just so fitting for that style of music. I mean,
mm-hmm.
The early '90s Tampa sound is just so good.
It's phenomenal, yeah. Like, and I think just the production with him, he really stepped it up from Eaten Back to Life to Butchered at Birth. Because I think it was them changing that guitar tone a little bit, but then also his production made it heavier. Like Butchered at Birth is such a heavy album in comparison to Eaten Back to Life. It's chunkier too, and I think the bass, like Alex Webster, has more room to breathe and is actually able to show off more on Butchered at Birth. And it's because of the Scott Burns. And I mean, I'm cheating off of Brian's test over here. That's my number 3 as well. Kind of alluded to it. I mean, and this was the one that I actually got last. Like I purchased this and started listening to it like more religiously within the past really year and a half, 2 years. So I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. And honestly, up until preparing for this stream, I was ready to have this as my last number 4. But I just realized that compared to Eaten Back to Life, this right here is the Cannibal Corpse sound. It's got, as I said, that just meatier guitar tone. It's like a heavy death metal guitar tone. The bass is more present. This might be my favorite drum performance by Paul. It's super intense. It's either this one or Tomb of the Mutilated for sure. And the album is just so intense and just hammers you from the beginning to the end. It really does not let up, and I love that. It's a wall of pure, Morrisound death metal sound, really. But then it's still spaced out, so you're able to pick out, the guitar riff versus the bass, and but the vocals are still just a mess of the sound. Like it's just another instrument, as you were saying, Chris. So but yeah, I think this album really just hooks you, and I like how there's only 9 songs here. I think it makes it more palatable, just easier to kind of get through. My favorite part of this album is the middle section. It's covered with sores through Rancid Amputation. Like all of those songs are perfect. I mean, Covered with Sores is kind of like the slower, like kind of almost sludgy sounding, like death metal song. And then it goes into Vomit the Soul with that killer Glenn Benton backing vocal. And I mean, really just that part alone makes it a worthwhile track for sure. In Rancid Amputation, for the longest time, I heard of that being one of the most difficult, like, death metal songs to play. Like in the early days of, when I was watching YouTube and like people trying to cover songs on either bass or guitar, Rancid Amputation was the song that was impossible to play, that people would try to learn, And then I really love the title track too, Butchered at Birth. There's just some really crushing riffs, and they kind of start messing around with that like slower breakdown riff during that song, that started to annoy you, Chris, on The Bleeding.
Yeah.
Like there's definitely like a part where it slows down and it goes into like a slower breakdown section. But I don't know, yeah. This one has definitely grown on me a lot, and it doesn't have the same memorability as the next two we'll talk about, but yeah, this is a great Cannibal Corpse album for sure. And I think it probably is their best artwork. Like, what do you guys think as far as like artwork goes? It's either this one or Tomb of the Mutilated.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tomb of the Mutilated just takes it for. I mean, how could you top Butchered at Birth?
That's yeah. Tomb of the Mutilated is how you top it.
And I think they nailed. It's just.
I mean, like with all the fetuses and stuff back here, and I know. Yeah.
The Butchered at Birth artwork, it's the most shocking, just because Tomb of the Mutilated with, the corpse, being eaten out, that's a little more kind of comical. Whereas this is just something a little more that you would, see in like just like an Italian horror movie, or like.
Yeah.
This is definitely, and then in the background too, like all of the fetuses on, the being strung up by their umbilical cords or whatever. Like this is definitely the more grotesque of all their album art.
Dude, Nick's ready to talk about Tomb of the Mutilated.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and once again to mention the stream on Heavy Metallurgy last night, Mark Riddick just really did a great job talking about this artwork. It was really cool to see him like dissect it. No pun intended there. But yeah, I don't know. It's either that one or Tomb of the Mutilated for sure, as far as favorite art goes. All right, number 2.
So my number 2, Chris Barnes' Cannibal Corpse, is what we just discussed.
Yeah.
Butchered at Birth. And this is the dilemma that I have, is that Tomb of the Mutilated and Butchered at Birth, it all just depends what mood I'm in, because they're interchangeable to me. Tomorrow this could be my number 1 and Tomb is my number 2. But then Monday, Tomb could be my number 1, and I just the opening meat hook sodomy, just that like grinding, or just that guitar riff, the opening, and then it just I mean, that's just so fucking crazy. Like, I mean, that is in metal songs, it's for intros. For an intro to a song, I think probably 2 of the greatest intros are both Cannibal Corpse songs. And Meat Hook Sodomy is one of those. That song is just so good. And then it just goes right into Gutted, which is, again, just really brutal. And so much of this album, it's just so fast. And, Covered with Sores, Vomit the Soul, Rancid Amputation, definitely really fucking good. Still some of my favorite Barnes here. Yeah, I mean, those songs are fucking incredible. This album is amazing. It really is. Like, I don't know. Now this is another Death.
I was gonna say.
Death Records OG press with Caroline. I guess Caroline was the distribution maybe for overseas or whatever. But this album just absolutely shreds. I love this album. And in the liner notes too, I like how they have this where they have it printed for like the maggot, join the Cannibal Corpse maggot colony, and the price is for like a t-shirt and stuff.
Like $9.99.
How much they
like
charging?
2-sided. I love how it says "Eaten Back to Life," 2-sided t-shirt, large and extra large.
That's all they had.
$15 US, $17 elsewhere. Butchered Back to Birth, 2-sided, large and extra. 15, 17 elsewhere. Oh, and Cannibal Corpse hats.
Was that a Blue Grape merchandising?
No, it says make checks payable to Cannibal Corpse.
Oh.
P.O. Box 41, Orchard Park, New York. So they were fucking selling merch themselves.
Damn.
Oh, wow. Sending it back home to Dad's house.
Right?
Mom and Dad's house, probably. Right?
But,
well, maybe that was before they relocated.
It had to have been.
So they were still, so they were still in Buffalo at the time.
Dude, show the cover again. I want to see, like, compare.
Well,
that old, because it's white, dude. Your
white,
logo is white.
The true logo, man.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, put up that corporate logo.
All right.
Okay.
You ready, Brian? We got the corporate death.
Or wait, well, I have this too. So it's I mean, seriously, corporate logo or true logo?
I mean, I kind of like the white, honestly, and
for sure.
in comparison, it pops a little bit more. I was wondering, what is the? Can I see the album title?
I think it's
white. It's white too. Wow, that really.
Oh yeah, it doesn't work as well.
No,
down there,
honestly, that does not work as well as the red.
But this is what the artist intended, though.
Yes,
right?
that's true. But it blends in.
It's like more of an off-white, really.
This
man.
And see the thing that they did with this that's really corny. So, and then now this is a a back on black press that I
Oh, yeah.
bought. I can't read the red on black font, but it's probably from like 2010-ish or so. It has this stupid looking texture pattern in the font. So okay, so there are two serious things that they did wrong with this. There's that texture within the font, and Rick will know what I'm talking about. But then also a horrible, obnoxious drop shadow. Also looks terrible. Shit. And this isn't what the artist intended, because this has the texture in the font, but the band title doesn't. This is just a solid red fill. So those don't even match.
Yep.
But when we go back to the OG, yeah, the way that they did this, it might have been a lot. Sometimes they do make a compromise for legibility.
Because they put a little bit of red in there. Sure.
Yeah.
Holding it closer.
But, I mean, the way the Cannibal Corpse reads is perfect.
That is perfect. I agree.
This looks blah. Not a fan. And then this just looks terrible.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't notice that what you were talking about, the textured font or the shadow. Literally just now. I did not even notice that. Yeah. Well, you're right, on the CD. But
so your CD still has that texture?
It does. After you pointed it out, I'm looking at it.
And
it's got the lines and stuff and the drop shadow behind it.
See, that's just corny graphic design.
Yeah. That's an eye that I do not have right there.
And that's the type of design where when you combine that with a horrible drop shadow, it just screams amateur work.
So,
all right, Brian, I'm curious what your
number two. Yeah, so there seems to be a theme. I'm wondering if we follow it.
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about.
And I appreciate Chris bringing the OG logo, because I was pulling like poser shit with the corporate reissues until now. Hammer Smashed Face EP. I got an OG of one of those. This is one of those deals where I picked this up. This was, I guess, a single. You know, they would call it a CD single. It would be like a couple bucks. And if I could buy one CD and one CD single, I would usually, do that. If I usually spend on like $20 at the store. So I picked this one up, and this is a cool EP. You get the Hammer Smash Face, and I got this because I believe I did see them on Ace Ventura. So I found this first, and then later went and picked up Too Many Mutilated, the full album. But this is cool because it's got obviously Hammer Smash Face, and then two cover songs. They do The Exorcist by Possessed, which is a killer song, and then Zero the Hero by Black Sabbath.
That's cool.
It's 3 songs. It's quick. It's probably under, I don't know, 10, 11 minutes, but definitely worth checking out. I know it's probably been tacked on to the end of Too Mutilated in some reissues, I assume. I know Metal Blade is also going to reissue this with probably the corporate logo on vinyl. I don't know if that's worth it, but number 2 is Too Mutilated for me.
And that's an OG logo too, right there.
This is an OG logo. But it's a corporate reissue.
Wait, when did they do that one?
I don't even know. I'm not quite certain on what year this was reissued. I'd have to look it up on Discogs.
It's just an interesting combo.
Yeah. So they went, which kind of makes me wonder if this is a bootleg, but it seems legit. But now that you say that, why would they do that? How could they get away with doing that? This is the uncensored version. Yeah. Oh, and that was the other thing.
The two covers.
I think this might have been the first. Was this the first one that they started doing the alternate censored cover, Chris? Do you know?
Yeah, because the censored cover was on the back cover of that skull in the upper right.
Right. This right here.
Yeah.
And then this little, the skull and candles was what they had on the EP. But yeah, I mean, Hammer Smash Face is the song. That's the one. That's the one they'll always be known for, right? But tons of killer tracks on this. Again, they go for the shock value, and it definitely had me coming back to this, flipping through the CDs at the store. I always, there'd be I would go to the CDs a lot for Carcass and Cannibal Corpse to see if there's anything there. And yeah, this one checked all the boxes, man. It's fast, it's brutal, it's technical, it's got groove, it's got some of those breakdowns, Alex Webster's bass work on it, killer vocals by Chris. The real, I don't know, I always kind of describe it as like dry. I don't know if that's a good way of describing it or not, but it's always guttural and dry. So cool stuff. Yeah. So that's my number 2. And I think Beyond the Cemetery is a killer ending track to kind of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that song a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, you weren't ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready now, though. It's all good. Here.
Okay.
I need to use the little boy's room.
We're just that. Also, I'm swapping out my. I'm going from a zombie.
Yep.
To a fucking bat squatch. If you guys know this one.
Just from your post.
Oh yeah. I was drinking this one last night. So, Rogue, I believe, is like a either Oregon or Washington state based. So
yeah, I know Rogue.
They're a bit more national as far as breweries goes. So you should be able to get this one.
Yeah, those are
around the states.
See those?
Yeah, great IPA. Definitely West Coast. A little piney.
I'm curious. Do you use a new glass each beer, or do you just rinse out one?
No, I will sometimes use a new glass each beer.
Okay. Depends on what you're drinking.
Depends on what I'm drinking and if I'm in the mood to do a shit ton of dishes.
Well, yeah.
At the end of the night, I have.
Or the next morning.
Yeah, or definitely the next morning. I have way too many beer glasses, so I feel bad if I don't. It's almost like your music collection, right? Like I feel like I have to drink out of all my different beer glasses that I have, so I'll try to cycle them through in the same way.
Dogfish.
Yeah,
they make a sour. Have you ever had their sour? Sea Squench?
Yes, sequential. That is one of my favorite all-time beers.
Really?
Yes, I love that. I love that fucking sour ale. It's like the best parts of like a margarita or like a liquor drink,
Yeah.
It's like a little salty. There's a little bit of lime in there.
Yeah.
And then it's just light and it's perfect. All that I look for from like that style of beer.
That's interesting. Interesting, because I thought it was bland and boring.
Damn, bland
Did
and
not like
boring.
it at all.
Oh,
Yeah, I was like, and I was surprised too because I see it all over. It just
it's a
didn't.
bigger one.
It didn't do anything for me. Yeah, Dogfish is pretty big, craft brewery. So
Yeah,
they,
I mean,
they got their stuff in, like the grocery stores. You don't even have to go to a big liquor store. But
no, even gas
yeah, that
stations.
one just underwhelmed me, and I was hoping for more because it was one I tried right when I started getting into sours. And I
Yeah,
was trying to find something new. After I had that distill, Here Goes Nothing, that first ghost I tried. And the next one I got was that Dogfish, and I was like, what is this? Maybe because the ghost was just so salty.
yeah.
There's that coriander. That's what I was looking for. And I guess the Dogfish, what's it called? Sea Squelch?
Sequential.
Sequential. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Sequential is more of a salty sour.
It is.
And not a ghost or gose or whatever how you pronounce it.
Yeah, it's
and I learned that there's a difference. I will try. If I can, I like the ghosts, but if I can't find any, I'll try any sour really.
dude. That's your beer right there. Yeah, Josh, try it again. I really
Maybe
love that
I
one.
will.
It's like, and it's easy to find. So
yeah,
but
and it is light. I remember it being light and crisp.
I think that's probably why I enjoy it the way I do. It's just so easy drinking, but there's still like a lot of flavor there. So, but no, yeah, Brian, we are note for note. So yeah,
here we go.
Yep. Number 2, we are at Tomb of the Mutilated right here. Which, yeah, I mean, first album from them that I ever officially heard and got and really try to process. And I mean, one that will just stick with me till the end. I mean, like, I guess you could say that album artwork is cartoony, which, yeah, sure, it definitely is. But if you're like fucking 16 and I mean, that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Like you're not used to that kind of shit. You're still
When I was
still
a
starting
kid,
to tolerate porn and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You're like what the fuck is this?
I thought the cops would show up having album art like that, like.
Well, that's what I was talking about earlier when I said, I didn't even want to take.
Yeah.
I was apprehensive about taking this to the counter and paying for it. Like I was a little embarrassed.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what are they going to think of me buying something like this?
Yep. I mean, in this one, you can tell there was maybe more of an intentional pushing of the shock value factor. Like, you can make an argument for this one that it was more natural, like the songwriting and like maybe like they wanted to push for shock, but it wasn't like overdrive. This one they were like, yeah, let's just dive into specifically that, like, the mutilation of like a woman, basically, like focusing on specifically like female and even like kids on here. I mean, we got I Come Blood, Addicted to Vaginal Skin, Necropedophile, which, I mean, that song is unsettling, especially when you get to like the very end where it's got like the little sound clip of the playground. You're just like, oh yeah. Yeah. And then Entrails Ripped as well. I mean, for the longest time, that was like my when I wanted to be an edgelord, I just would be like, I listened to songs called Entrails Ripped from and yeah, that was it. But dude, as an album overall, like, this has probably been just one that I have the longest relationship with. I mean, it's odd because it's like when I stack up like my favorite death metal or my favorite albums overall. It's not going to end up on any list, but it's still one that I would need to have, and I would need to have, or I've just had like the longest relationship with. You know, do you have albums like that where they're imperfect, but they're, you hold them kind of so close to you, like they're a part of your DNA, kind of as far as like a musical experience,
Yeah.
even though they're not like the perfect album, they're just ingrained in just your musical development. I mean, as I said, Hammer Smash Face is probably one of the best opening songs, period. Like it's been played to death. No doubt. I mean, I've heard it hundreds of times. It's still awesome. Like I listened to it today and that shit still hits every single time, and I just think like that intro, the bass solo into the blasting part into the slower sections and stuff, and the groovier sections, it's perfect. And I don't know, just this album overall, just it taught me how to listen to an extreme metal album, like the patience and the willingness to look for different instruments and not be turned off by the vocals or by the sheer intensity of it. Other songs, Icon Blood, of course, has like that killer guitar riff, which just stands out above and beyond. There's just some amazing riffs all across this album, like Addicted to Vaginal Skin, Postmoral Ejaculation, and Beyond the Cemetery. They all have these like really just fast, energetic riffs that just really sprint the song forward. You kind of get caught up in them, and they're just very memorable. It's like they took the songwriting from this, or the backbone, if you will, like the heavy backbone, and just ran with it and made that songwriting from Butchered at Birth all the more memorable and interesting. And I'm with you, Brian. Beyond the Cemetery is a great closing track, and has one of the cooler, groovier riffs on it. I mean, I think the groove starts to seep in a little bit more on this album for sure, So, yeah, number 2, pretty easily, far and beyond this album right here.
Yeah, and I think I'm lucky that I found this. This is actually looking at Discogs. This is just a repress. It looks like
Really?
on the straight represses they use the old logo and the old title. On some of the reissues that have been remastered, they use that new logo, which is massive on yours. It actually covers up part of her arm, and then it's got that awful, same deal. It's just kind of a cut and paste of Butchered at Birth, the lettering, the title.
Brian, let me see your the album name down there.
Oh yeah.
That's a lot better. Actually, I really like that.
Yeah, and then the logo is a little smaller up here in the corner. It doesn't obscure her. Her arm at all.
And stuff.
Yeah.
And then Logan, what does yours look like?
Yeah, look like? Put yours up again, and it's just like totally taking up a big part of that top left corner.
Yeah, I mean here, like this shit is entirely different. I mean, so yeah, like her arm, which maybe that's intentional, because I mean those look like cuts and stuff. I mean, who knows? Who knows?
You think that was too much?
You know what? You're right. that might not have been
All
the
things
worst.
Considered,
that might not have been the worst part. But then, this,
she got cuts on her legs too.
Yeah, you're right. But this down here, and there's definitely a odd texture to it, Chris. I don't know if you have the like this repress where they do it, but there's like kind of looks like it's on fire a little bit. I don't know, like camera kind of sucks, but it definitely looks better on George Bryan with the just the smaller.
Can you zoom in on your title again? Because okay, see that's different from my my vinyl.
Yeah,
has the corporate logo,
mm-hmm.
and the title of the album looks different at the bottom of it. It's not.
Oh yeah.
Well, because you know what though, your version looks really sloppy. Like that's just really bad design. Because it's just Rick just tuned in. He didn't see the part where we were going off about drop shadows and texture fills within fonts, but where Butchered at Birth was a horrible offender of that. Yeah. But is it my turn now, Logan? Are you done?
Oh yeah, man, you're good.
Okay, so my number 1 and my number 1.5. I'm just going to group these in together. You know, this and this, like what Brian was talking about. This EP, that you know what I love about this is that they did for a Sabbath Zero the Hero. That is a very deep cut, especially for that time. You know, like Black Sabbath. You know, this was 93 when this came out. To cover a non-Ozzy or even a non-Dio song.
Is that Born Again?
No, Zero the Hero.
No, what album is that off of? Is that?
Oh no, this is the Hammer Smashed Face EP.
So what Sabbath album is Zero the Hero off of? Is that?
Born Again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that, and then The Exorcist. But Zero the Hero, the fact that they covered that song, but it's just such not a Cannibal Corpse type of song for them to cover. Like, it's so slow and dirgy sounding. This is definitely an essential. I mean, like, you can't own Tomb of the Mutilated without having this to go with it, because this is just sort of like, I mean, I think both of those songs in like later reissues were these just extra tracks included on the album. Maybe, I don't know, but I also like too that here's the blue grape, like on the inside, the blue grape order form for like a t-shirt. I love that back in the day, it was such a process just to order a t-shirt. Like nowadays, you can just go on any website, Bandcamp, click buy it now, and you got it. Here you had to fill out a form, send a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you had to. This was still going. Wait, so. Because there was a Cannibal Corpse hat. Okay, so, and then you could only buy large and extra large, which I also like too, because you couldn't get like the super, like they didn't have slim fit shirts or anything.
What if I want a Fruit of the Loom small?
Right, yeah, none of that. It was either heavy dude or fat dude. Like those were the only size shirts that you could get. And so Cannibal Corpse hat, Eaten Back to Life t-shirt, Butchered at Birth long sleeve, all of this, a pin and a pendant. And there was just a flat rate. T-shirts 14, long sleeves were 24. That's a lot. Hats 12, pins $8, pendants 10. You don't hear anything called a pendant anymore.
No.
I think they were like 12,
So
13 when it allowed their first.
we were talking about like
Yeah.
why Phil was saying that a lot of death metal bands like Born Again as a death metal album, and this is or as the cover or just as a Black Sabbath album. And this is why. It's just when it came out,
Yeah.
it was there first. Which
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. That does make sense though.
But and then at the time too, back then, that's what you could buy at Camelot Music.
Mhm.
You know, there wasn't the internet to deep. You know, you couldn't add a band's entire discography to your Spotify. You know, back then it was, you know, okay, if Camelot Music or Waxy Maxis or Music Land, just whatever they had in stock was what you had access to. Because mail order was difficult too, because you had to have access to a catalog for mail order.
Or I mean, a checkbook. Usually, your parents.
Yeah.
You have to, say, "Hey, can you write me a check? Here's some cash. Write me a check."
Can you write me a
so-
check to Cannibal Corpse?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like, do you want to do that? You want to ask?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Mom, can you order this Tomb of the Mutilated, Addicted to Vaginal Skin? Like, okay, so here's one thing that I like is in the booklet for Tomb of the Mutilated, the Cannibal Corpse Maggot Colony Fan Club, $8 membership fee in the U.S., $7 membership fee elsewhere.
Right.
And you got a newsletter, complete touring info, and promotional material. I wish I fucking joined at the time, because I would have held on to that shit, and it would have been awesome to still have that.
Yeah.
This offer from Cannibal Corpse. Metal Blades record is not responsible for contents of this offer. Write to Cannibal Corpse Maggot Colony, P.O. Box 41, Orchard Park, New York. And this is where it's really good. Make check or money or order payable to Cannibal Corpse, U.S. funds only. Like, it almost sounds like they're trafficking drugs or something. like it must be clean, crisp $100 bills, and like something like that.
Well concealed cash.
Right. And okay, yeah. Support. Oh, and then I also love it. They also were big on Normal back then. National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, which nowadays, I mean, I can walk down to the corner and I have like 2 dispensaries a half a block from me. But yeah, so 92. This album, again, one day this could be my number one. The next day, Butchered at Birth could be my number one. This one, definitely some more grooves, but I think for me personally, this is the more not memorable, but just the one that just really hit home of who Cannibal Corpse was when I heard it the first time, and what really stuck with me. I feel like, I mean, this and Butchered, it's just so difficult to choose between the two, because they're just so incredible and just so important for death metal. But yeah, that's just
sure.
what
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said, yeah, I agreed. Those both have that classic sound.
And I mean, there were plenty of death metal albums out before these 2 albums came out. I mean, there was early Possessed, there was stuff like that, but just where the production was just so heavy. And I'm sure, a lot of that had to do with Scott Burns, but it was just, because there's death metal, but then there's brutal death metal. And I feel like this and Butchered at Birth are like the 2 very early brutal death metal albums of just pummeling, drumming and just sick riffing, and again Chris Barnes and his just guttural raw vocals. I mean, I love him. I really do.
Yeah. I mean,
No baloney. Good seeing you in the chat, man.
yeah, we got Phil and Rick now. It's a party.
Betcha.
Yeah. Dude, that's solid. And now we know what the next two albums we're going to be talking about are.
Yeah. And, well, Chris started out with this one.
Yeah, I know.
Bleeding, and it's my favorite. It's the first one I got. I mentioned that earlier. I got the cassette tape. Had to hide it under the bed. Blah blah blah. I always thought they didn't do at the time. There was not an uncensored cover or a censored cover. It was just this. Now that lately it's been reissued, they include the full piece, which that's from, which is cool.
Yeah.
I actually like. I mean, the full piece is really cool too. But yeah, I love the black. They went with the black logo this time, which I think is really makes it pop on this. Black font on the title as well. I talked a little bit about staring through the eyes of the dead. That was the first song I heard and played it over and over again on that VHS tape, watching that video over and over again. And I'm pretty sure I bought this at Musicland in the mall in 94. So in 94, that's when I got my driver's license. So I was, and about 15 minutes from my house, there was a mall that had 2 record stores. Best Buy was down the street that was stocking a lot of CDs. Across the street from that was a Sam Goody and a little strip mall. And then there's also this local shop and kind of another little shopping center. So in about a couple square miles, I had like 4 or 5 places I could hit up and just go and just do some cover shopping. And I remember picking this up because also at the time I was getting a lot of death metal from Columbia House and BMG, those CD clubs. But Cannibal Corpse was not an option. Neither kept these in stock or offered them, So I actually had to find this out and about. And again, we've talked about the songs already. Deep tracks on this. I think Pulverize is really cool. It's a cool song. That one's got a punchy beginning, a big groove to it. The title track is awesome. And then Chris mentioned this earlier when he talked about the bleeding, but Force Fed Broken Glass, I think, is a really interesting song. I love the part kind of toward the end where they stop and they're kind of playing that kind of melodic, clean kind of guitar melody, and you can kind of hear the gurgling, the gurgling.
That shit's brutal.
Yeah, man, that was crazy. So yeah, again, like if I was putting together a top 10 death metal albums of all time, this would probably be in my top 5. I've been listening to it since I was 16 years old. And it's kind of ingrained in my DNA, for all of the Barnes kind of exaggerations on this with the screeching and the squealing and the dry production. That's how I describe it, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
The guttural dryness of it, and totally forgot to mention, this is where they add Rob Barrett, and I think Rob Barrett is a killer guitar player, a killer songwriter, and I really liked him on when he played with Malevolent in that. I think he was on Retribution.
Yep, he was.
But he was also with them later on, like on
he stayed with them through War Cult, I believe.
Right, like on the Will to Kill and Venomed.
Yeah.
So I always liked him. That was a big reason why I love the solo exchanges between him and Jacko on this one. The back and forth. I thought it was cool.
The solos are upped.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, number one. But don't forget. Remember that.
Words to live by.
Yeah. That's funny. I was looking for this. I keep like an envelope full of stickers that I get. I was looking for this everywhere. And then I realized a long time ago, I think when you said you wanted to, or Chris mentioned doing this, that I put the sticker with this CD. So I just found it.
As you were prepping.
No, just now when I opened it up.
You did.
I haven't listened to this. Oh, that's
okay. All right.
So
that one.
Oh yeah, I have two of these, and I have another one on the back of my car. So, because like I drive a Prius too, and so I have like all these like sick metal stickers on the back of my Prius, and this is one of them.
It's a nice red Prius too,
and it's the real logo.
Yeah,
the true logo. Keep honking. I'm being eaten back to life.
Solid. That's solid shit, man.
That's a killer shit.
Man, it's funny to hear like the different opinions on this album right here, because Chris, this was your least favorite, and some of the reasons you listed that you liked it the least are kind of why I like it the most. And then Phil's over here talking about Chris Barnes' vocal performance, and I'm kind of seeing what he's talking about. He's talking about the lyrics went downhill a little bit. The structure of them is a little like simpler and everything.
It could be because I'm listening to it with blinders on because I just I fell in love with it back then. So I look past all that. I don't have much criticism of that. It all made sense to me then, and I still do.
And here's this one, yeah.
The bleeding, I always had that feeling that's like, because before the bleeding, they were not a mainstream band at all. Like they were not, that was underground for the time. And I always felt like the bleeding was, okay, all these other bands, Fear Factory, Nail Bomb, Sepultura, they're trying to get into those ranks. And that's what I felt like the bleeding was. And lyrics, again, I don't know. I don't read them, but musically and just vocal styles, especially with the filters that they added to Chris Barnes' vocals on the bleeding, I always felt like, okay, this is something more accessible to MTV,
Mm-hmm. I mean, see, here's where I disagree with you, Chris. Like, you could say that maybe they were trying that, but obviously that's not the direction that they wanted to go in, because the Vile after the bleeding is like their most technical and very much more of a straightforward death metal. Like they drop a lot of the groovy elements that were in the bleeding. Really, the person who ended up going down the groovy path was Chris Barnes with 6 Feet Under. Like that ended up being the groovier, more like Fear Factory groove kind of sound.
For the time though, groove metal was a new thing.
But then here, I'm looking back. Phil was there. He agrees with you, Chris.
Oh no, I'm not arguing with Phil.
No, he agrees with you.
Okay, yeah. It's just for that time in like the early to mid '90s, groove metal. Like bands like Meshuggah, when they came out and stuff, and just sort of again, breakdowns. Breakdowns were something new. '80s hardcore didn't have breakdowns like it did in the '90s, and but then metal bands started to incorporate breakdowns into their music, and it's again a lot of the breakdowns that I hear in the bleeding, they just felt like, okay, we need to have a breakdown, but it's really not our style. I don't know. I just love the relentless, just sort of just
blasting.
The pummeling.
Yeah.
I do it not only the solos, but on the bleeding, just the riff interplay between the two guitar players.
Yeah.
Especially like on track 3.
Oh yeah. Stripped, raped, and strangled.
Stripped,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
She was asking for it.
Man. Yeah, let me go ahead and just dive in to my
and Rick made a good point real quick.
Yeah.
Cavalera, Max Cavalera.
Yeah, like Soulfly.
Oh, that's where Sepultura was going with Chaos AD.
Chaos AD, yeah.
That was a definite change. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean I agree. And then Nick at Thrall's mentioned Obituary, and they were definitely going that groovier route as well. I just feel like the songwriting just got better with this album, with the groove and with the I honestly, this is my favorite Scott Burns production too. Like
sure.
This one and Tomb of the Mutilated, they kind of do switch back and forth a little bit. But like I can hear everything so clearly on this album. It's phenomenal. Mainly I can hear Alex Webster. And I love Alex Webster as a bassist. He's just got such a fun, like convoluted and constantly churning way of playing bass. It sounds perfect for just a band called Cannibal Corpse, And on this album is where it truly starts to shine, I think. Like it definitely was doing that on certain tracks on Tomb of the Mutilated, but every single song has a killer bass part on the bleeding. And I just think that the overall like better dynamics and the fact that they weren't trying to go a mile a minute the whole runtime just makes the songs more interesting. Like I think the album flows significantly better than the others because of that, because I'm able to break the songs up in the tracking order. Like there's the first 3, Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead, Fucked with a Knife, Strip, Raped, and Strangled. And then there's the next 2, Pulverized and Return to Flesh, where I think, Chris, those have those the breakdowns that you don't like. Both of those songs have like slower breakdown parts, which I like because I think they play with the breakdowns with how fast they can go too. Like there's the breakdown, and then it immediately breaks into a very technical, like fast-oriented section of the song, and yeah, those two songs are awesome. And then the next three are my favorite on the album. The Pickaxe Murders, She Was Asking For It, and The Bleeding are all just absolute killer, and they really start to bring back the intensity of like Tomb of the Mutilated, if you will. You know, like it's a lot of breakneck speed, especially with the Pickaxe Murders and the Bleeding. That's just nonstop. She Was Asking For It. You know, probably favorite song on the album. It's got like
really? Wow.
for me it's the guitar riffs, and then when it slows down a bit, and it there's that whispered vocals where it's like, come to me,
Yes.
you know, and then at the very end Chris starts singing that again in his like death metal part. That I don't know, that
me, I hear her waiting in the grave.
Yeah. And I like Chris's vocal variation on this album. Like the breeze, really the vocal performance he starts to do on 6 Feet Under, and it becomes a problem there. But here it's kind of like fresh and exciting, and it varies it up a bit more than the previous four or previous three, you know. And then Force Fed Broken Glass is a great song too. Definitely up there just with the sampling. I mean, that's the first time you hear it, that's kind of hard to listen to. Sound of a dude choking.
There's a German hardcore band from the 90s who were called Force Fed Broken Glass.
Oh.
And they were really good stuff. I think they were out on Pecoro Records or something. Really good, screamy blast beat stuff.
I always thought that was a great song title.
It's just. I was trying. Honestly, I wanted to try to do a pun with that, like force-fed broken beer bottles or something like that.
Yeah, that would have worked.
Maybe I should have done that one. Yeah, that is one of my favorite song titles for sure. But yeah, man, this album is awesome. I think An Experiment in Homicide is cool too, but it doesn't quite measure up to the other ones I mentioned. But honestly, their most memorable songs from this era are on this album to me. I mean, so yeah, number one, The Bleeding.
Wow.
As you said, yeah, perfectly. Apparently, Brian. As you said, it's like part of the DNA.
Did we match on the sword too when we did that?
No, there was a little variation. Remember,
Okay.
I had Gods of the Earth dead last, and I think that was your number 2.
Yeah, but you had Warp Riders 1.
Yeah.
Okay, we both had Warp Riders 1. Yeah.
Yep. So,
hey, Logan.
Yeah.
Your Bleeding CD.
Yeah.
You have the clear inner tray?
I do.
Well, what's the picture inside of it? Like what's inside of like the inner tray? Like what's the inner?
Oh shit! I dropped it.
Black tray.
Yeah, I meant to dive into this because it's like mine is similar to your guys's, but I don't have
the same.
I don't have the parental advisory sticker on here. But
yeah,
this
that's
is my
weird.
my only thing with the old school logo. Like somehow I got that, and this is my.
So what's behind the CD? What's the image?
Oh, what's behind the CD? It's wow, it's zoomed up on that dude who's.
I like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Check out the compare the discs.
Okay.
Here, check mine out. So mine, I got underneath, or the title underneath. You guys
we have it on the Chris. Okay. You and I both have it on the side. Like our discs are the same.
See, so the one Brian has, I had one of those ones where the title was closer to the boundary of the disc.
Okay, yeah. It's kind of like it's stretched almost.
Yeah, like it looked like it didn't really fit. But I have the inner tray, and there's the black inner tray, but there's not like anything printed.
No.
You know how sometimes you'll get the black inner tray, but then there's still something printed.
Yeah.
On the reverse side.
Yeah.
That's not the case with this one. I think this is a first press.
Dude.
I'll have to look.
Nick thinks our discs are huge. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
I needed to hear that. Sometimes I'm not
That's
sure.
the first time I've heard that, but
Sometimes I'm not sure.
Wait, is that Nick, or I can't figure out the Thralls of Metal guys, because it could be one of
Nick.
like four.
Who knows?
It could be Jam. I like Jam and John, or it could be the guy with the Abraham Lincoln beard, or
Miller. Yeah.
Nick is my favorite, though. I hope it's Nick.
Come on, Nick.
what's your spine number? Is it -2?
-2. Yeah, -2.
So they're probably all the same.
Yeah, 14037-2.
To figure out, you probably got to go to like the fucking matrix.
Mhm.
-2. It probably would be the CD matrix that would
identify it. I know I got this, back in 94 or 95.
I love how on this stream we're very open and just analyzing every single nook and cranny of these of these pressings.
Well, that's the important thing.
That is the important
stuff. It seems like sometimes they reissue. Maybe when they reissue, Metal Blade reissues the original. I don't know, the original production of it. They're allowed to use the old logo. Maybe when they do the remaster, they have to use the new logo. I'm not sure how it works. It seems like when I was looking through the Tomb of the Mutilated ones, that's how it was set up. But
what I've heard how it works before is the CD jackets. Same with vinyl. Is the printing side of things are done with a different company. Mm-hmm. And then the CD printing or the vinyl pressing are done at the pressing plants. So probably what would have happened is maybe they had 5,000 CD booklets printed, but only 2,000 CDs. So like when they did a CD repress, even though they still had, they had the new logo, because you have that tomb with the new logo on it on the CD, but then they probably still had overstock of the original booklet printing, so that they just combined the two, and they probably would have owned the rights to Barnes's logo on it, so then they were free to use it for maybe that initial print run.
Yeah, that's probably it. So from here, I wanted to do like a quick recap for both like what ended up with Cannibal Corpse and what ended up with 6 Feet Under. I think we kind of already touched on it a little bit, but like, what are your final thoughts for just Cannibal Corpse in the post Chris Barnes era, and then I guess 6 Feet Under? Like, what do you think? Oh, also, any boots or other stuff you want to show off?
Yeah, this is the Created to Kill demo.
Chris, talk a little bit. I gotta take a piss real quick.
The Created to Kill demo. Chris Barnes doing 7 songs that ended up on Vile with Corpse Grinder doing the vocals. They're definitely very raw. Some of the songs have like just a random fade out. And that's one thing that I've started to appreciate over time is the fade out on a song. Like, remember when early metal songs, Metallica did it a lot. It was kind of a thing back in like with 80s metal where there would just be the fade out where they're still just playing and all this, but then, just the volume just fades out, to the end of the song. there's that on here. It's definitely a demo material. It's a listenable demo. It's not just like a boombox recording. I consider this the unofficial 5th Chris Barnes album. Yeah, this one that I have right here, and I think that these songs were on, there's a Cannibal Corpse box set that was put out. I don't own it, I've never seen it, but I think these songs might be on that box set. I'm not sure. This was put out on Black Moon's records out of Poland. It's definitely a boot, but it's not a blue disc boot. It's an official pressing. And I love how the inside in the liner notes, it says, "Created to Kill was recorded in the autumn of 1995. This final recording of the true Cannibal Corpse stands as a tribute to one of the pioneers of death metal prior to their descent into mediocrity. Hail to the old."
Damn.
I know. I love it because that's definitely not band approved.
No.
Definitely a bootleg to have a statement like that. But yeah, this definitely, I like listening to this time to time. And then now this one is a demo from 1989. Skull Full of Maggots, The Undead will Feast, Scattered Remains, Splattered Brains, Put Them to Death, Bloody Chunks are the songs on here. This really isn't listenable. It is just like a single like room mic recording. It's not much of it is audible. It's just something that the completist needs to round out their collection. So yeah, it's very raw. You're not going to be listening to this while you're driving maybe if you're driving, but
little muddy, a little dirty.
yeah, you'll listen to it once and then it'll sit on your shelf and just collect dust. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know if there are any other, like, from the Barnes era, if there are any other EPs or anything, like official EPs.
No.
The only one that I know of really is the Hammer Smashed Face one.
Yeah. There's a bunch of like
right.
live bootlegs though, right?
Yeah, I got one of those. I got this
Yeah.
You know what? This is not Barnes era. This is
this still Fisher?
Yeah, this is Fisher, Cannibalizing Cleveland, but this is the only bootleg I have. Riga Death Records, 16 tracks, so it's from their 1997 U.S. tour. So they're touring on Vile.
Yeah.
I think, is that right?
No, yeah, because Gallery of Suicide is 98,
yeah.
I think.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's got the corporate logo. I would like to check out some of the live bootlegs from the Barnes era.
You know what? There's this video on YouTube, and it's weird because I think it's Cannibal Corpse in Moscow or something, where it's the Barnes era, but the audio syncing for like their live stuff is so weird. Like there's a total, just the syncing is totally off, where the timing of the music does not match with them on stage at all. But it's cool because it's like, here they are, they're young dudes. You can tell it's their first time touring globally.
Yeah.
They're in a bus. They're not rock stars. They're just dudes out touring the world for the first time. So there's that you know, that enthusiasm, that sort of, they're young and, you know, this is something that's brand new to them and they're into it 110%. Um, it's a good watch to, you know, check it out and, you know, watch it. And but there's definitely something really weird with the syncing of the audio for that one.
Did they ever get banned from Russia, or is that just Germany? They got banned from
Yeah.
performing.
I don't know.
I know they got banned from Germany for sure. I think after it was either both Butchered and Tomb or one. But
Probably. I mean, remember those days back when there were like the Faces of Death movies, and it said
Yes.
on the cover, "Banned in 58 countries around the world."
yeah,
Like,
they liked all that shit. I mean, they
like it could have been just one venue they were banned from, but then they could
True.
just
Or it
put
could have
out
been
it
just
banned
fucking
in
it up.
Germany.
Right. You never take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And you know, with 6 Feet Under was announced, I mean, I was super excited.
Which
because,
I was gonna say let's talk about 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, man, Haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily because it was Chris Barnes, because Alan West is on this. I fucking love Alan West. The Incomplete is my favorite Obituary album. I love his sound. I love his guitar tone. I love his soloing.
Yeah.
It's too bad he had issues and wasn't able to kind of live up to his full potential, I think, but I love his sound. Now these songs are kind of simplistic. It's Obituary with Cannibal Corpse singing, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's some good songs on there. You know, The Enemy Inside, Lycanthropy's cool. Still Alive. He is really kind of, he's got those melodic solos after each like verse. It's really cool. Human Target is kind of fun. Suffering in Ecstasy, Beneath a Black Sky, Silent Violence. It's a solid album. I mean, it's not gonna set the world on fire, but as far as like this project, I was more excited because of Alan West than Chris Barnes. It was just kind of a bonus that Chris sang on it.
For the first 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, and then through I like this EP is good too, Alive and Dead. The song Insect is a killer track. I don't know if you guys have the EP. I think this is the second thing they put out. So yeah, they got a couple originals. The song Insect is really a killer 6 Feet Under track. And then they do a cover of Grinder by Judas Priest. That's really well done. And this is really my kind of ending point with 6 Feet Under, Warpath.
Mm-hmm.
I really dig this album. It's a little cheesy, but it's good cheesy fun at this point, you know. He's I don't know, the production on it is a little much, but I don't know. He still puts in a pretty good vocal performance. It's just a little tongue in cheek. Oh, this is the one that's got 420 on it.
Yeah.
Song 420. Like it's
Brian, that should be your favorite.
It's fucking goofy. But yeah, I know. I think that song is awesome. It's another one of these kind of guilty pleasures I think I have is this album. Death or Glory, or the cover. War is Coming. War is coming. It's just super simplistic, you know.
Yeah,
I don't know. Revenge of the Zombie. You know, I think I had the one after this, but I think they switched guitar players to Steve Swanson, and I just didn't think it was that good. You know, I think as far as 6 Feet Under goes, the Alan West stuff I'm into. Everything else is kind of boring.
Have you tried any of their other output, like after that?
Yeah, the one the one that was written by Landfill from Municipal Waste.
I didn't know he did one.
Wasn't there one? One of their more recent ones. I guess I'll have to look it up.
There was one where the guys from Chimera, if you know them, the like Kevin Talley and
Yep.
I don't remember the name of the guitarist, but the guitarist from Chimera, like it was like Unborn or Undead,
The last one I listened to was.
and that's supposedly good.
Oh,
I
you know what?
listened to it.
I listened to Crypt of the Devil, which was yeah. So it's Chris Barnes and Phil Hall from Municipal Waste was on bass.
I didn't know
I think
that.
he wrote it too, or I think he, yeah.
The next guy,
He's
Rob
got stuff.
Rob Arnold from
Chimera.
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So Landfill, and yeah, it just didn't do much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Crypt of the Devil. I think I remember Justin from Father Befouled made a Facebook post about Nightmares of the Decomposed, like how much he actually liked it, and based on that alone, I gave it a try. But again, it just didn't do much for me. That was kind of boring.
Yeah.
That's my 6 Feet Under hot take.
Chris, you got any 6 Feet Under takes you wanna put out, or
the first album was awesome, and for the time it was just a different sound. Warpath, I haven't listened to Warpath in years, but I remember liking it. Yeah, I remember liking it when I heard it. Just kind of one of those things where it's just, at the time, just groove metal just wasn't really my thing, Although I might just jump online tonight and pick up a copy. But yeah, the first one definitely, that one I always thought was really awesome. Well, the thing with what Barnes, as much as people want to shit on 6 Feet Under, is I feel like it's one of those things where young bands would love to collaborate with someone like Chris Barnes. It boosts their image as a band. He is a legend in underground metal, and it's if like dude from Municipal Waste gets to play on a 6 Feet album, the 6 Feet Under album. Hey, it's good for him. And, it's sort of like, I'm sure Chris Barnes makes plenty of money and royalties from Cannibal Corpse. Because when they play live, I'm sure he probably owns the rights to all the lyrics. So whenever they play one of his songs, they have to pay him royalties, which is probably could be in the thousands of dollars for every time that they play one of the songs that he owns the rights to the lyrics for. And
I mean, like every time they play it live, you think?
probably not that much. Maybe like for a tour.
Oh no, I'm sure if it could be something where it could be a percentage of what ticket sales are, or it could just be like, it's and
I can see the percentage, yeah.
Yeah, something like that where, like Brian, you were saying when you saw them and they played one song from each of the Chris Barnes albums. They probably only did that so they could pay him they didn't need to pay him a whole shitload of money.
That's fair.
Because I heard about this with Van Halen before, where when Sammy Hagar was with Van Halen, but whenever they wanted to play a David Lee Roth song, they had to pay David Lee Roth a ton of money in royalties to use, because he owned the rights to the lyrics. So they can't play Jump or Panama, like without the lyrics. But to have Sammy Hagar sing that song, then they had to pay David Lee Roth like a ton of money in royalties.
You just hanging out at the house, just like collecting money.
Yeah, so it's like, as much as people want to shit on Chris Barnes and 6 Feet Under, it's like, I see it as just being something that he's like, hey, this is what I want to do. You know, if you don't like my fucking shitty stoner doom, whatever it is, you know, then fuck you. And, you know, it's an opportunity for younger musicians to collaborate with, you know, a legend in underground metal. I could be completely wrong and not know what I'm talking about, but that's just my impression.
Whether that collaboration, you know, bears any fruit, that's up for the fan to decide.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I do think there might have been maybe at the time of the, you know, splitting ways, maybe touring was maybe Chris didn't want to tour as much. It seems because Cannibal Corpse is always on the road. It seems they're writing a new record, they're recording a new record, or they're touring. They're that's what keeps them in business. I've seen them 3 times. The most recent this past November on that you know, their Violence Unimagined tour, or the second leg of the tour or whatever. And they played Joliet at the Forge. And that place was sold out and it was packed. And, you know, there's a lot of old dudes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm in my mid 40s, and there were times I had to get out. Like, it was even you know, usually I can stay on the outskirts of the mosh pit, but this time it was just you're getting pushed everywhere. At one point, it wasn't really fun anymore. You know, just getting pushed around that much. I was too busy trying not to fall down than paying attention to the music. So I had to, by the end of the show, you know, by the last maybe 45 minutes to half hour, I kind of got out and was over by the, just kind of hanging out by the merch stand, grabbing a t-shirt and just kind of watching the end from there. But, you know, the fans still come out and they still get rabid for this band and these songs, both all old and new, you know?
Yeah.
They played a lot from the Barnes era, of course, but, you know, a lot of these Fisher songs are becoming classics, like Devoured by Vermin and Mummified and Barbed Wire and, you know, Pit of Zombies. Man, I love the song Pit of Zombies. I think that's a killer Corpse Grinder song.
I think, yeah, I mean, Vile was a really good album. I really lost interest in Cannibal Corpse soon after Vile.
Mm-hmm.
I just think at the time, kind of my taste in metal, I just was gravitating more towards grindcore, and Vile was good, but it was also just like a drastic change for me. Just with Cannibal Corpse, with George Fisher, new logo, musically they were changing a lot. So to me, in a way, it kind of just felt like it was just a new band.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I should really kind of go back and kind of listen to some George Fisher stuff.
I'd be curious to hear what you think about certain albums, Chris. You know, like if you hear the corporate corpse, or if it, you know, you actually hear, I don't know, some of the stuff that you initially fell in love with, you know, with the band.
Okay, so can I mention something that is indirectly Cannibal Corpse related?
Sure, of course.
Okay, so today, I've been really excited about this. So Paul, the drummer from Cannibal Corpse, is in this new band called Heaven's Gate, and it's with the bassist from Reversal of Man, and then I think the singer dude from Municipal Waste and someone else. And so I ordered the 12-inch that they just released. I read about it like a couple months ago, and there was a teaser song that was released. But today I noticed on Bandcamp that the EP was up for sale, so I pre-ordered that, and I'm really excited to get that because, man, I'm telling you, like, if you want to talk about going back to like '90s hardcore, Reversal, man, that was right up my alley at that time. And to think that, okay, here you have this old school death metal drummer
Mm-hmm.
collaborating with some dudes like that. I'm really excited. I think that could be a really good album.
Yeah, I didn't know he was on that. I'll have to. You said Heaven's Gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the
Looking up.
cover is of like this like sort of melted looking, type of face. What I've heard so far
Oh yeah,
sounds
I
really
found
good.
it. I found it. Yep. Sweet.
Because they have Reversal of Man were just like really screamy power violence type of stuff. But yeah.
Sure, we got S&T Young. Cheers, man. I don't think I've
What up,
seen
Steve?
Steve's here. Cheers, man.
Yeah, right.
remember-
S&T Young.
I remember this one. I was maybe a junior or senior in college, and I met some people, some friends that were into death metal, and this album came out. I think my buddy had bought it, and we were out that night and went back to his room to listen to it because he had said there was this song I had to hear, and it was number 3, Pit of Zombies.
Mm.
And I think the next day I went to the local college record store and grabbed this. And it's one of my favorites of the Corpse Grinder era. Pat O'Brien's on this one. Savage Butchery, Hatchet to the Head. Pit of Zombies, a great 1, 2, 3 start. Compelled to Lacerate's Killer. Sanded Faceless, This is one of my favorites from the artwork. At this point, it's a little comic book, a little cartoonish. It's not the greatest, but it's better than Kill. I mean, what's going on here?
Oh, for the artwork.
What's going on with my glare?
Yeah,
Nothing going on about Kill. Even though there's some killer tracks on here too. Time to Kill Now, Make Them Suffer, five nails through the neck. Fuck yeah, that's how it rolls. I feel like at this point, I think I mentioned earlier, they're putting out albums with like 10, 12 songs on them. A lot of them are just kind of run of the mill. There's usually one killer track, and they add that to their set list. Violence Unimagined. I don't know. I guess is this the censored cover?
Yeah,
I don't.
it is.
I don't even remember what's the song that they played on here.
Violence Unimagined, or no. Sorry.
Red Before Black. I think Code of the Slashers. When I saw them in November, I think they played Code of the Slashers. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But yeah, Torture's a good one. Scourge of Iron. That's one.
Scourge of Iron.
Play. It's real. That's one of the kind of slow burning one. I think the only one I'm missing is the Skeletal Domain.
Dude, Rick brings up a good point. The fear of a font.
Yeah, oh my God.
The Helvetica. God forbid.
Submerged in Boiling Flesh.
Yeah, dude, I definitely I'm Brian. I mean, I'm with you, man. Like, I have just such a strong affinity for like the Corpse Grinder era. Like I'm
all for it.
I'm all for it. I've really been sold on basically every album I've heard from them. Like I've not heard Gore Obsessed, but hearing your good review of it, I should definitely pick it up. No, dude. Like,
yeah.
I definitely got to check that one out.
It's a good one.
You know?
2002. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the earlier ones. Like I think it was after. It was either after or before Bloodthirst, which that's kind of the furthest I go back here. I'll quickly.
Well, there's. I
Which
forgot
real
to-
quick. I want to do another.
Pounded into dust.
Yeah, Pounded into Dust, man, is awesome.
Yeah, I still have from when I bought Vile. I still have a. Was the Wall? Was that a CD store that was out here at the time? Or that might have just been an East Coast place, but I still have Vile from when I bought it. But then there was a warranty sticker from the Wall on it of like, if this is damaged, we'll replace it at no cost. At the Wall.
At the Wall.
And Waxy Maxie's, that was another East Coast place.
I missed that era for both of those.
Did you have a did you have a Musicland out by you?
Dude, I have. Okay, so Brian, because I told you I grew up in Chicago, in the suburbs.
Yeah. So you had the same ones I did.
Okay,
Camelot,
so
Music
do you know Yorktown Mall?
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay, so because I grew up in Lombard, and Yorktown Mall had a music land, and that's where tapes and CDs and vinyl at the time. But I was busted for stealing from there because, like, I would steal cassettes and CDs because that was the time. Like, the cassettes were in those big security things where it was like the plastic thing that. And what I would do is take it and stick it in my jacket in my armpit. And then CDs were in the long boxes.
Yeah.
So I would steal those too. And I got busted one time from stealing from Musicland.
Yeah.
There was another place too that was a really big store. I mean, this Logan, this was the type of place that was like, did you get busted while stealing to Jane's Addiction? Listening to Jane's Addiction? I've been caught stealing.
Been caught stealing. I'm jealous of all these stores, though, man. You guys had a great. I didn't get any of that shit.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't
man, or maybe it wasn't that great. Who knows?
It cost.
We're waxing poetic.
But at least you could go and you could, usually they have a decent selection.
And that's, the decent selection part, which, here, I'm going to run through, like, my Fisher, and I have this is my one 6 Feet Under album, which is the one you guys kept talking about not having.
Yeah.
Maximum Violence. Album number 3. I listened to it today for probably the second time since I bought it, which was earlier in the year. It's super simplistic. It's just so. It's overly simplistic, and there's 3 cover songs on here. I think this is when the cover addiction started for Chris Barnes.
I think so.
Like, because
I tell you what, War Machine, their cover War Machine and half bad.
I agree.
I like the cover of War Machine they do.
I agree. I heard that cover and I was like, this is good. This is good. And then Wrathchild came on. I was like, this is okay. I like Wrathchild. And then Jailbreak came on after that. And I was out. I was just like, this is awful. Please no. And then the actual songs that they released off of this album, I really don't remember any of them. I just remember them all being very, like, super simplistic driving, and Chris's vocal performance is very, like, in rhythm with the guitar and everything, which I know that's what the Cannibal Corpse guys were having issues with him. They're like, his vocal delivery is too on beat, on time. Like the only song I remember that was actually a 6 Feet Under original was Torture Killer. Like that one was cool. Torture Killer was cool. Maybe No Warning Shot also, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Not much there. But man, the Corpse Grinder era, fucking that shit. I love that. I mean, for me, my first two albums, like my first one was Torture, and I this is my favorite Cannibal Corpse album. I think. Like I would have to like revisit it and do a full ranking to be able to fully be like, yes, this is my favorite. But you know, some of my favorite songs are on here, like Demented Aggression, Scourge of Iron, Encased in Concrete, As Deep as the Knife Will Go, The Strangulation Chair, Followed Home Then Killed. Yeah, some classic Cannibal Corpse stuff on here.
There's just something to the first one you get into, where you kind of it becomes more like a time capsule or a reflection back upon a certain time period that you know.
I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Especially when like it's all the albums are just variations on a theme, right?
Right.
It's the one that you have that nostalgic feeling with the most. And for me, that's this one and definitely the Bleeding. It's those two, you know. Kill is definitely an important one as well, but there's almost too many songs on here that get lost in the mix. Like Murder Worship and Necrosadistic Warning are awesome. 5 Nails Through the Neck is fucking awesome. But yeah, I won't dive too much into the rest of the stuff I have. I want to do a Corpse Grinder era.
Like, count me out of that.
That's fine. You can.
I will not participate.
You're good. You're good.
You know,
I want to. I'm into it.
Yeah. Shit. This one, Gallery Suicide, has 14 songs.
See, that's a lot. That's like too many songs.
Right.
Sure.
They got I Will Kill You, Sins to Burn, title track, Chambers of Blood,
like
Centuries of Torment.
These two,
Crushing the Despised.
These two are 9 songs on these ones.
Yeah. And they, you know, I think lately they do that. They go a little overboard. I think the last album they put out is just kind of,
which
they're just mailing it in.
I like this one. I thought Eric Rutan being in it, I thought this was good. Like Chris, if you listen to like some of this stuff, I think you would probably enjoy it. I mean,
I haven't listened to that album, but I'll check it out.
Like,
does Eric have any writing credits?
He does on Ritual Annihilation, I think, and shit.
Because this shit is not like Hate Eternal.
No, it's not. But yeah, there's some parts like that song Ritual Annihilation kind of has a Hate Eternal vibe to it, I think. And just the intensity. He has other 2 or 3 songs where he wrote them.
Yeah, okay. Condemnation, Contagion.
Yeah, that one's good too.
Well, you know, another thing too about Chris Barnes that I like is that he's a death metal vocalist whose name is Chris, and I'm a Chris, so I have that favoritism right there.
Chris, I can't argue with that, man.
Right? I know. How many death metal guys are named Chris? Come on.
Can't argue with that. All right. Any other stories like about like their live concerts or anything you guys want to share?
Yeah, the first time I saw them, it was somewhere between. It was probably 2003. Corpse Grinder era. Went to see them in the St. Louis area, in a place called Pops, which is actually on the Illinois side, but the closest city is St. Louis. And it's kind of a rough area. And this was like, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There's like a convenience store and then this Pops venue, which is like a bar / concert hall. And then like a couple strip clubs. And they're all just kind of in this like gravel parking lot, which is cool because there's plenty of parking. You're not like in the city, where you got to go drive a couple blocks and park for $20. Anyway, so see the show. There's a dude who's there, and the show's crazy. And there's a dude there who's like on crutches because he like has a broken leg or something. He's got a huge cast on one of his legs, and people are stage diving. This was before, Dimebag had gotten shot, right? So people are still jumping on stage and, running around, being crazy, crowd surfing. And so this guy starts like crowd surfing, and then his crutches like follow him, like the people. So he gets up on stage, picks up his crutches, like headbangs with Corpse Grinder for a minute, and then like jumps back into the crowd. It was pretty wild. Another great thing about this venue was that you could just walk right around to the back where the bus was, right after the show. I got to meet a lot of cool bands that way. I met Opeth, Lacuna Coil. But so I got to meet briefly Paul and Alex. They're the ones that came out and they were signing shit for the fans. I didn't get anything signed, but you were mentioning the beer that you picked tonight, like the official beer of Cannibal Corpse. I will say, back then, they were both drinking Newcastle Brown Ale.
Hey, there you go.
That was that, and I think somebody mentioned it. He's like, "Yeah, this is my favorite beer." Paul, at least I think that's what he said. So, going back to 6 Feet Under. I never saw 6 Feet Under. But when I was in college, one of I think my sophomore year, there's a dude who moved on my floor from Iowa. He played in a local melodic death metal band. One weekend, he went back home to play a show. They were going to be the local opener for the 6 Feet Under show. So I gave him my booklet for Haunted. And I said, "Hey, if you see Chris, ask him to sign it." And so he did. I don't know if you can't really see.
No, I can see that shit here. One sec.
He wrote, "To Monkey, Kill, Chris Barnes, SFU." Like my nickname, that's what they called me. Those monkeys.
Nice.
So, "To Monkey, Kill, Chris Barnes."
Nice.
So
That's
indirectly got an autograph, but that's it.
Dude, Chris, you ever see Cannibal Corpse? Any of the eras?
I don't think so. I can't remember. I don't think I have.
Yeah, I mean, like, because if you missed them with the Barnes, right?
Yeah.
You're like, that's Corporate Corpse. I'm not gonna go see Corporate Corpse.
Yeah, I definitely didn't see him with Chris Barnes. I mean, with
Yeah.
George Fisher. Yeah, I don't know. I maybe I haven't. I don't know. I mean, if I did see them, I mean, I've seen so many bands over the years, but it's always just like a festival or you know, like a show that has like 4 or 5 bands on it. I don't know. I can't remember if I've seen them or not.
Yeah, I got you. It's hard to keep
Yeah.
track. I have like a running like
Oh,
Google document where I keep track of all the live bands I've seen. But that's
I just ran across this one. Yeah, here's my. This show. I was more excited. I don't know if you can see this ticket stub. This is 2016 at the Metro, Chicago. This is actually the first time I saw Obituary. So it was the Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, Cryptopsy, and Abysmal Dawn were the openers. So
holy shit, that's
Nice.
that's one hell of a lineup, dude.
yeah, that was a good
Jesus
show.
Christ.
Yeah, I mean they ripped it up that night too. It's a high energy show, you know. Everyone's really into it.
Yeah.
They put in the work, you know. They don't mail it in as far as live performances.
I definitely don't think
the 3 times I've seen them, and I just saw. Oh yeah, it's my.
Go one more thing.
Picked up the tour poster from the last run.
Yeah.
Signed.
Yeah, no.
I didn't. They were selling this as the merch booth. I didn't get it signed by them.
Yeah, that's a cool poster.
But yeah, I like it. I like to grab these tour posters if they have them, and this one just happened to be signed. So
How was Immolation?
cool. Oh, Immolation was great. That was the first time I'd ever seen Immolation. So they played a lot. I bet half of their set was from Acts of God. Played a lot off that album. But really, really, really cool. Dark Funeral was pretty epic too. Never saw and then the opener Black Anvil I was really happy with too.
Yeah, I saw Black Anvil open for Immolation. They opened for Mayhem one time when they came to Charlotte, and that was a killer. That was a killer lineup for sure. So yeah, I saw Cannibal twice. One it was 2015. I saw them in Durham, North Carolina for the, I guess, Skeletal Domain tour. Cattle Decapitation was opening. That was for their Anthropocene Extinction album, and then also Surreption. But I missed Surreption, unfortunately. Which, because at the time, do you guys like Surreption at all?
I don't think I've ever heard them.
They're Surreption. They're like a pretty groovy technical death metal band out of, I think, Sweden. I don't know. They're pretty solid. I really enjoy them. Or some of their more recent output, but Cannibal Corpse killed it. They opened up the set with 2 songs right off of Torture. It was Demented Aggression right into Scourge of Iron, and it just the crowd went crazy. It was awesome, and I just think they know how to. I mean, you know what you're gonna get with a Cannibal Corpse set, really.
Yeah,
you're gonna get like the same 10 songs, and then a variation of like 7, probably. But it's still killer. And the last time I saw him was in 2017, off when they were touring for shit. Where is it?
Right before Black.
Yeah, this one, Right Before Black. And they were touring with Power Trip, so I was
nice.
I was happy to see Power Trip open for them, and yeah, they played a couple songs off this album, and I do like this one, like Only One Will Die, Code of the Slashers, Scavenger Consuming Death. There's some good ones, and yeah, Cannibal Corpse always they've killed it live with Corpse Grinder, both times that I saw them, and especially when they brought out the old school stuff. And It's, I mean, even if they have to pay Chris Barnes every time they play,
Yeah.
they still do it every single show. They still do it. It's not like, because here's what I'm comparing it to, right? So I saw Morbid Angel in 2018 with Steve Tucker. And guess what? They didn't play a fucking single song that was not a Steve Tucker song.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
If Dave Vincent was singing on it, they didn't play it.
Yeah.
Like, everyone in the crowd was like, play Chapel of Ghouls, play Maze of Torment, play God of Emptiness. And nope, they just stuck Steve Tucker the whole time. And I mean, I get it. I'm not going to try to, shit on Morbid Angel for having to do what they have to do. But God, it was a bit of a bummer seeing them. And that being the reality, that
there's a lot of good Tucker stuff, but yeah,
there is.
Still, it's
I'm
the
a
David
big fan
Vincent stuff
of some Tucker stuff, but it's not the same.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I'm wondering. I'm seeing them in April. I'm wondering if that's what's gonna happen. If it's just gonna be Tucker stuff.
I think that's all it'll be, because then
Probably.
Vincent and Pete Sandoval, they're touring as I Am Morbid.
Right.
Yes. And so I think as far as that goes, it's kind of screwed. But I'm just happy Cannibal Corpse is still able to retain, like, here's Skullful of Maggots, here's
Rotting
Hammer
Head.
Smash Face, here's Rotting Head if they want to pull that one out.
So when I saw them, the last time I saw them, they as I'm pulling up the set list, actually they opened with Scourge of Iron, which was cool.
Yeah.
They played a lot off the new one. Probably 3 or 4. They played Fuck with a Knife.
Mm-hmm.
Off as far as we're going, Barnes era, Gutted, Icon Blood,
dude,
Skullful of Maggots, Stripped, Raped, and Hammer Smash Face. So nice. No Covered in Sores. They did play Gutted.
I know. I got Covered in Sores. Cool. I think.
So what? 5-6 songs.
Yeah.
Of the classic era.
I think I got Covered in Swords the second time I saw them. I'm pulling it up real quick because I'm curious as well.
Yeah, you gotta love that list. .fm.
Oh yeah, I love that. No, they played Gutted. Yeah. But I mean, Gutted's a great song too. Yeah. So. I don't know. Hopefully, this is not the last time we'll talk about Cannibal Corpse on this channel. I love the Corpse Grinder stuff. So, bread and butter for me. But
yeah.
Anything else to add before we wrap it up?
No, it's a good chat. We went
over 3 hours, man.
3 hours. Yeah. I thought it would go quicker, but
I did too.
A lot to discuss, especially when we get into 6 Feet Under and the Corpse Grinder era for sure.
I'm game, dude. Thank you guys for joining. Thanks for anyone who watched, and
yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.